All right. So, welcome back. And let me go to chat real quick because I need to find my Discord so that I can put Discord info in so that people can find me on Discord and join me on my Discord chat while we're playing Dune. So, okay. So hopefully I can get it load up. I thought I put my Discord information at the beginning of each of my videos. Brother, how are you, brother? Yeah, I thought I put the Discord information at the start of every one of my videos. It's like in the information part, but maybe not. Hey, so we've got the two Fremen warriors. We'll have to roll to see which one of you is in charge of the other one. Tracy's not super excited about the idea of playing Dune, but she'll come around. She always does. Which, I mean, I don't know why people get upset because it's like I ask people, hey, what would you like to play, right? Doesn't mean we're ever going to play it because let's be honest, half the time, why is it wanting to make me log in again? I hate that. It's like, come on. But anyway, what's up, Crafting Gamer? Let's see, this should be it, right? Wait, are you human? No, I am a meat popsicle. All right, so it don't like my phone number for login. That's weird. Okay, so we have to do it this way. Play Dune. Oh, da 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 da. Da da da. There we go. Being a knucklehead there. See, that worked. Putting together some mutant crabs real quick. Let's see. We've got Hungar's channel. Let's go and see my channel, though. Unscripted and Unchained. I was looking at that just the other day. Friends. Somebody wants to be friends. Who is it? Who wants to be my friend? Add a friend. No. I mean, under the friends thing, there's a red. Oh, pending, duh. Windrunner. Okay, that's my bro. So there he is. He's added. So that should do it. That should have fixed his issue. Which I'm a little sad because it's like I have twice as many hours played in a game, and he's twice as far along on everything. So it's a good thing I'm not a jealous person because, hey, Six Nations, I haven't seen you in a while, man. I hope you've been all right. But yeah, people get all like away when I like. Here's the thing. Even though I'm not probably ever going to get to play some of the games that I talk about, I do enjoy just asking people what they would like to play, and thinking about it. You know what I mean? To me, that's fun because I'm a nerd like that, right? And but of course, some of my players they just don't get it. And like I said, the wife is like, I don't know if I want to play that. I'm not a huge fan of the Dune universe, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, give me an effing break. I mean, you absolutely hate 40K, but you played that. So she always, not always, but a lot of times she pulls this. This is a common thing. You know what I mean? To be like, you guys can do it on you can play by yourself, blah blah blah. And then I'll be like, okay, you can sit here bored, play on your phone, doodle around on your Mobo, and while we have a bunch of fun playing a role playing game. That's fine if that's what you want to do. And then, of course, she immediately comes around. So, man. So now you know about how, part of my relationship works, right? But I've told these clowns multiple times. Just because I ask you what you would want to play in a setting does not mean that you will ever get to play in that setting. Don't take it that way. Because let's be honest, in the last month, we've talked about Traveler 2300 characters, we've talked about Gamma World characters, we've even talked about Star Frontiers characters. And yet, the chances, unless the players, all get together and throw a French style rebellion, the chances of us playing any of these games are pretty slim because we'll probably just keep playing the D&D game we're playing, right? But I like to make characters. Been in the hospital, finished MRI, got CHF. Oh man. And hopefully finding the root cause. For what it's worth, I'm on the mend and got a great team saving my sorry ass. Well, I am happy to hear that. Very, very happy to hear that. You know, when you get our age, man, you start getting worried about everybody because it's like if you go too long without seeing somebody, the expectation is, did they die? I mean, because we're getting about that age, right? But anyways, so that's my thing, Players freak out. And it's just like, just pick the character you would want to play if we actually ever played the game. It's super easy. It's like, it doesn't hurt anyone. You just pick the character you would like to play, and then I'm happy. And then you probably never got to worry about it again. Cyborg. So, two people, of course, chose to be Fremen. And that's a pain in, well, not really a pain in the ass. It just means that either they've left their home world, or more likely they are in some way involved in trade or something with the rest of the house. I mean, they'll never be trusted though, because they're Fremen. So one person chose swordsman, and so we got a Duncan Idaho wannabe, and then we've got a Mentat. So Tracy will probably be a House Zion. I don't know what Jax would want to be. Maybe a House Zion. I swear, I'm just gonna start assigning shit to people. Just seems like it'd be easier, Instead of asking anybody's opinion about anything, just telling them, this is what you are. This is what you're going to play. And I'm sorry, but you have no choice, because every time I ask you, you're making a pain in the ass, This is not supposed to be a pain in the ass. This should be like a fun and easy thing to do, Hey, in the Dune universe, if you could choose between these things, which thing would you choose? How hard is that? I mean, that shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be an issue, but some of my players, they take their sweet time answering these questions. It's like, oh man. And then some of my players, the good ones, they answer immediately. I mean, think about this as the setup, though. The setup is members of a minor house, maybe even affiliated with House Ouroboros or something like that, not anything like one of the major houses. And you are sent to kind of set up a forward or secret base to see how much spice you can smuggle. Oh, you got your new freaking thing today. Nice. But your particular group, minor house, is sent to Arrakis to try to set up a operation to get spice, which means you're going to you're not going to be able to go through House Harkonnen, since they're the ones that run the spice. That means your house is going to have to deal with the Fremen and with smugglers to try to lay hand on some spice and, send it back to your patrons. But since you are a lesser house, that means that the fact that you're on Dune, first off, we would have to figure out a reason for why are you on Dune, because the Baron and his people would definitely want to know what the hell you're doing there. And then you might be expected to take part in the different political things that are going on. So if there's a some kind of social greeting, meeting, whatever, at Carthage, representatives of your house may be expected to go, right? So your character could get involved in a lot of the politics and everything. Now, as Fremen, your first loyalty would always be to the Fremen. Oh yeah, 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 the Talaxu. But yeah, as the Fremen, your first loyalty will always be to your siege and people. So in game, we would have to figure out why you would agree to work alongside this other house. The only answer I keep coming to is maybe you feel like you can, the Fremen feel like they can manipulate this other house to get, weapons and stuff like that. So, and in return, the Fremen are willing to help out with the spice situation, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all going to be about. It's all going to be about the spice when it really comes down to it. Like who's got it, who wants it, etc. So, and I think that could make for a very interesting game politically, but it depends if people wanted to give it a shot. If people don't want to give it a shot, or at least make a character for it, then it doesn't matter. Not that they'd ever have to make a character. Dune characters are like some of the most simple characters to make, because you basically pick like 8 things and then a couple of traits and you're done. It's pretty easy. I think it is a fact that what happens is when I'm making miniatures, sometimes I look at a miniature and I'm like, I wonder what kind of character my players would want to play in the game this miniature is most like. Right? So if I printed out, say, a bunch of Fremen, then I'm going to wonder, what would my players want to play in the Dune universe? If I print out or I start painting a Yazirian, who's obviously military PSA, then I will ask questions about, what kind of Star Frontiers character players want to play. That is, I think that's what happens, And my expectation is that my player group take the 5 minutes to pick one. That is my expectation, because I feel like that's only the polite thing to do, really. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just a matter of politeness. I was half tempted to set the game in the same universe as the computer game, and if I do that, that would mean the 2 people who picked Fremen would have to pick different characters, being that the Fremen have been completely exterminated by the Sardaukar. So, that's a thing in the computer game. When the Emperor declared the War of Assassins on Dune, he also sent a bunch of Sardaukar with the express goal of exterminating all the Fremen. And according to the lore of the game, it worked. Because I know my characters have been looking through ruined Fremen sieges and temples and shit. I have yet to find a single Fremen. So if they're out there, I don't know where they are. The computer game is an alternate reality in which Paul Atreides is never born. Instead, Jessica obeys the Bene Gesserit sisterhood and gives birth to a daughter named Aristy. And because she gives birth to a daughter, thereby proving her loyalty to the Bene Gesserit, she is trained to become a truthsayer. And because she's trained to be a truthsayer, she immediately catches Yui because she can tell he's lying, right? So she catches Yui. So when the Harkonnen and the Imperial forces attack Arakeen, the Atreides are ready for them, and the house shields are not sabotaged. So it turns into a big war, and at some point, the city of Carthage, which is where the Harkonnen mostly hung out, gets nuked off the face of the earth, or Arrakis, right? And that's when they decide to call an end to the actual war. But the Emperor declares the War of Assassins, which is basically you're not allowed to actively move against your opponent, but you are allowed to assassinate the shit out of anyone you can. And that's the computer game. That's how the computer game works. Setting it in the real world, it would be like, I don't know. You would be looking at quite possibly somewhere. It'd have to be definitely before the rise of Paul Atreides. That's a given. Because, I mean, you couldn't set a game really. I mean, after the rise of Paul Atreides as the Emperor, unless everyone in the group wants to play a Fremen or something, and then all you want to do is, you know, some kind of wild combat game where you and your Fremen buddies are going from world to world, forcing everybody to accept the religion of the Muad'Dib, you know. I really don't know what you would do there. And God Emperor of Dune would basically be whatever you are in that game. Your whole goal is to serve the God Emperor or to plot to kill him. I mean, one of the two things. That's really all there is to it, right? And of course, you're going to constantly fail unless the DM does what I would do, which is allows the players to take on the most important roles in the game. But if you try to keep it true to the timeline, then you're going to fail because, I mean, I believe it's the Emperor's sister or niece or something that actually kills him, but only because he wants to be killed. That's the thing with Leto the Second, the God Emperor, is he's unkillable. So, and he made a deal with himself that he would never use his prescience to predict his death. He also brought Gurney Halleck back. Geesh. How many times? Hundreds? Hundreds of times he brought Gurney Halleck back. So let's see now. So Gurney Halleck ends up being the guy that has, let's see, like 1,000 lives. Okay, sending an invite to Windrunner personally. So Windrunner should be getting an invite directly to my webpage. And then let's see if I think it's funny, these guys, they're saying when they're trying to teach people how to avoid ice, you know, you got Sandy Cortez being all like, I was just looking out for my constituents. And it's like, illegal aliens are not your constituents, babe. Sorry. I mean, that's just not how it works. You know, that's not how any of this works. To quote the old lady, unfriended. That's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. So, could she actually, maybe she won't, but be charged for being a dumbass? Yes, she could. I don't think she will, though. I mean, but if the cops wanted to get hardcore about her being an accomplice to a criminal whatever, they could do it. And the only reason I say that is I can hear my wife is in there watching something about it. As a matter of fact, I'm getting up because I'm going to go get a drink. So I'll be right back. Some ice water. So that is the invite to my particular Reddit. It's not super whatever because sometimes, guys, I kind of even forget that I even have it. And then I get distracted with other things like the Dune role-playing game, which I've been playing for over 200 hours. And I have, I can say this. I've been playing the game for 200 hours. And I actually got good equipment and stuff. I mean, I'm doing pretty good. I've maxed out a couple of my different class/skill lines. Still not 100% sure which ones I even like. We'll see, you know? I mean, we'll see. I do know that I most enjoy the sword fighting. So the gunfighting is okay, but the sword fighting actually requires skill. You know, you got to know when to block, dodge. And that's one thing knowing some Bene Gesserit powers really helps with. Because if somebody's up on you, you can hit the Z button and it just does this flurry of attacks and kicks, and, you know, kung fu shit. And then they'll be really stunned. And while they're stunned, you just take your Kinjal and stick it in them. And the game is pretty lethal. You know, my character's like almost level 100, and I can still get two shot by some of the mobs out there. You know, so um, of course I'm hoping to get the equipment together to build the next stage of Holtzman shield. That'll be a good thing. Right now I've got a level 3 Holtzman shield, but I really need like a level 4 or a level 5, you know. With a level 5 Holtzman shield, most of the minor shit out there um yeah, but Crafting Gamer, while I agree with you in the Doom game, the gun is not the great equalizer. The Holtzman shield is. Because if I'm in rocky area where I don't have to worry about worms and I've got a high powered Holtzman shield and a high powered power supply, I turn that thing on, I will ignore your gunshots and walk up and feed you my knife. Unless, there's always an unless you're using some special firearms that are specifically designed to go through shields. They generally are prefaced with the word drill. So there's certain kinds of like shotguns or whatever that are called drill guns. And it's like instead of firing metal projectiles at you, they kind of fire self-propelled rockets. I mean, the rockets don't have explosions on them, but when they hit your shield, instead of just, going off, they hit the shield, and then the rocket actually pushes them slowly through the shield, and then you get shot and die. So, yes, you are right. If you've got the right firearms, you can definitely handle a shield. But since I've upgraded to like my level 3 shield and my level 4 power pack, dungeons that I used to could never even dream of running, now I'm just like running through, just bouncing around, curb stomping people. Plus, I have a suspensor belt, so when I jump, it actually negates gravity, and I can jump and actually fly through the air. And one of my trooper skills says that when I'm flying through the air, when I'm in the air on my suspensor, all of my gun damage does like extra damage. Think of it like like Duncan's death in the 80 something Dune. Yeah. That particular firearm, that was a drill firearm. So when it hit, it was like boom, and then you see it in the new Dune too, when they fired the missiles at the Atreides ships that are on the launch pad, and the missiles hit the shield of the ship and then slowly drill through. So yeah, there are those weapons. There are. You can get them in the game. There's one, it's a double barrel. It's like a double barreled shotgun, but it fires 2 drill bolts. And yeah, not good. Not good at all. But like if you run up on a bunch of guys with like Mala pistols or standard assault rifles and shit like that, a lot of times your shield, if you've got enough energy in your power pack, it's like, because every time your shield gets hit, it costs some energy. So yeah, if you stand there like an idiot and let 5 guys unload on you with assault rifles, eventually they're just going to overpower your shield. So you don't want to do that, but if it's one guy sniping at you or something, you can zigzag at him and the shield will bounce rounds off until you get close enough to feed him your dagger. Which I am also a level 1 sword master, and I'm thinking about getting rid of the rapier I have because I recently found a blueprint for like this crazy energy blade sword thing. So that's one thing in the game is as you adventure around and get into fights and stuff, occasionally you will find actual blueprints. And the blueprints will be for like ancient weapons and things like that, you know. Not always ancient weapons. Like I've seen where people found like blueprints, and it's like Thufir Haiwitz sniper rifle, and it's basically your standard sniper rifle, but it's been modified by Thufir Haiwitz. You can find like Count Finring's Mala pistol, and what's good about that is Count Finring's Mala pistol is full auto. So where most Mala pistols are semi-auto, you know, pow, pow, pow. His is so at close range you can just spray unshielded targets and take them out. I mean, if you're in the deep desert running around and you get in a fight with somebody, the last thing you want to do is turn your shield on, because you're both going to just get ate by sandworms and lose all of your equipment and reappear back at your starting area completely without anything but your underwear. Believe me, I know. I've done it enough that I got an achievement. I've been eaten by worms so much that I have an achievement unlocked for being eaten by worms. So I'm going to say something. A lot of people will take this as crazy talk, but I have to say it. Having watched the new Dune at least 10 times, 1 and 2, having watched the sci-fi Dune at least 100 times all the way through over the course of, the 10 plus years it's been out, and having watched David Lynch's Dune, I can't even say how many times. I think I like David Lynch's Dune pretty much the best, even though the sci-fi miniseries Dune is actually closer to the books. And I do like a lot of the costumes and everything in there. Like some people think it's lame how the Sardaukar are wearing like crushed velvet hats and look like Renaissance. They almost look like the Swiss Guard the way they're dressed when they're not in combat. I don't know. There's a part of me that kind of really digs that, you know, that thinks that's actually really cool. And I think the main thing about the 86 Dune that I really love, that makes me think it might be the best iteration of Dune, is the actors. Like, you can argue that Kyle MacLachlan was maybe too old to play Paul Atreides, but I really don't care. I mean, he was great as Paul Atreides. And, what can be said about Sting other than he was absolutely captivating as Fade? Was he over the top? Yeah. Was he like super like amped up and shit? Yeah. Was he an actor that you could tell was just having a great time playing a character? Absolutely. Sting, in my opinion, is the best Fade ever. Ever. And also looks the most like Fade should have looked. The new movie where they're all like bald and super pale white and all that's not, there's nothing in the books about that. Were the Harkonnen a little pale? Yes, because their world doesn't get a lot of sunlight, and all the plants on their world are more red because they use a different form of chlorophyll to filter out the meager light that there is, to survive. But no, they're not all a bunch of weird, bald, super white albinos. The miniseries It was better than it should have been, and definitely better than it gets credit for being. The miniseries was good. And also, it went way more into the actual stuff that was going on. Like, there's stuff in the miniseries they would never dream of putting in the modern movie. Like the scene where the Baron calls Fade into his personal chambers because Fade tries the poisoning. And they have to make that deal together where they agree to stop trying to kill each other. Well, most of it was Fade trying to kill the Baron. And you can't really blame him since the Baron killed Fade and Raban's parents so that he could raise them himself. So, you know, because somebody the other day was like, the Harkonnen, me and my brother were talking. And he was like, the Harkonnen don't really have friends. And I'm like, of course they do. Like, if you're in a unit of Harkonnen troopers on some world doing shit, you're going to have friends. I mean, is their society effed up? Of course, yeah, it's super effed up. But let's not act like every Harkonnen is a monster. That's just not not the way it is. But yeah, the miniseries. I mean, you had, who was it? William Hurt as Leto. He did an amazing job. The lady who played Jessica did an amazing job. Everybody in that movie did an amazing job. It was a really good movie. It's crazy on YouTube. They have a like a YouTube thing where it compares all of the scenes at the end where Paul fights Fade. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, the miniseries is the best. It really is. I love the whole how Paul's wearing all white and they pull his robes off and he walks forward and he does, the whole, he's got his crysknife and he's like, may your blade chip and shatter and all that. And then they start fighting and they're actually, there's actually a lot of choreographed combat that goes on before, Paul eventually kills Fade. But now David Lynch, he made the Dune series way more of a myth. He went a lot more hardcore on some of the more supernatural stuff, but I still love his movie. Absolutely. I mean, it's still a great movie. Even with the stupid sound things. Why he did that, I don't know. Because the sound things are dumb. I mean, But otherwise, yeah, great movie. Oh, you watched that video this morning? What? See there? So yeah. Now the one with McLaughlin was good because Sting was like really hamming it up and enjoying what he was doing, and like I said, you could tell Sting was just like, I will kill him and all that shit. He was just getting, he was just being it. And I love that. I love watching a movie when you can tell the actors are really enjoying being in the movie. It's kind of like the prequel Star Treks or Star Wars. I mean, if you actually watch the movie, the one guy that you can't really complain about is the guy who played Emperor Palpatine, because that dude is having the best time ever. He is just doing his thing, and it's pretty awesome, right? but everyone else is like a stick figure in that movie. And if we're talking the original Dune, Sting is just really loving his role. Yeah, I trimmed the beard up a little bit. It was getting a little. I haven't done my summer haircut yet because my summer haircut is I just shaved my head. But it's going to happen. I don't know, or maybe I'll grow it out. Maybe I'll be a hippie, long-haired country boy hippie. But yeah, when you compare those combats, so you definitely see that the sci-fi miniseries, the combat is a lot more better, like choreographed. There's a lot more like kung fu type shit, leg sweeps and back kicks and crazy shit going on. You know, I'll tell you something. The guy who played Fade in the sci-fi series, he also played a character in a Stephen King miniseries called Rose Red. And after that, he went back to college and got a degree and is currently a teacher for like some kind of science, like biology, microbiology, whatever. Because after he did Dune and Rose Red, he could never get another job. Meanwhile, the guy who played Paul, I believe, is the same guy that was in Starship Troopers and all that shit. So he got work. That guy did. Oh, something Bear told me I did not know, guys, about the David Lynch Dune. Yeah, the new Dune did the ornithopters and everything right. Yeah, it certainly did. Uh, the girl who plays Chani in the David Lynch 86 Dune is the same actress that played Rachel in the original Blade Runner. I never noticed because of how different they looked. But yep, Bear told me that, and we looked it up. So interesting, interesting. And let's be honest, the Chani from any version of Dune is better than the Chani from the new version of Dune. Because Chani from the new version of Dune is a stick of wood that just stands there looking like she really has to go to the bathroom. I mean, she's just a horrible actress. You know, as a matter of fact, I would say Zendaya is the worst part of the new Dune, and every scene she's in is terrible, you know? And also, I don't like, but I understand directors taking certain leeway with movies, especially a movie like Dune, which, let's be honest, is damn near unfilmable. You would need a reincarnation of Peter Jackson to actually remake Dune. And in the book, Chani is a true believer in the whole Muad'Dib, the Lisan al Gaib, Paul being the Messiah. In the book, she is 100% a true believer. And another one is Paul's actual other wife, which was the wife of Jamis, who he defeated in the duel. Part of Fremen culture is if you defeat a man in a duel, you become responsible for their family. So she become his wife. Not that he ever messed with her. He never did. But she is part of the reason he even survived. Because Jamis's wife worked double time to help Paul navigate Fremen politics and culture, because at any time Paul could have been judged not valuable to the tribe, at which point they take his water. So if it were not for the wife of Jamis, who Paul was responsible for feeding and clothing and everything, and her children, she had a couple, Yeah, who knows if Paul will have even survived. But they never mention her in the book. However, the reality is, yes, Jamis had a wife. And he was too proud. That was his problem. He was too proud. Also, in the sci-fi, that's more what Jamis looked like. He was a white guy, or you could say a dark-skinned Greek or Arab. He was definitely not a full-blown dreadlock-wearing African. And Liat Kynes was also not a black woman. I personally am not a huge fan of the gender and race swapping characters, but I managed to enjoy the new Dune movies in spite of it, except for, I will say again, except for any scenes Zendaya is in. Because her idea of acting is standing around looking like she'd rather be somewhere else or like she wants to take a poop. Mad Cat, you only saw the first part. Second part's pretty good, except for Zendaya, who spends the whole movie looking like she's got poop. And they really threw off timing with the second part, because the second part really, they could have put in so much more stuff in the second part. And then the duel and everything like that between Paul and Fade, that should have been in a third movie. Like how the sci-fi thing. The second part of the movie should have been a lot more about the Fremen raiding and, Paul going through all of the stuff Paul went through. There was a whole thing. The fact that the Emperor sent the Sardaukar to hunt him down and they killed Paul's firstborn son. Stuff like that. But instead, they skipped a lot of that stuff and went right to the duel. The military advisor, are you talking Gurney Halleck? The one that was played by Sir Stewart? Or Duncan Idaho, who unfortunately got shot in the head with a drill bolt and doesn't appear again until Children of Dune, when they make a goal out of him and he spends the next, 3,000 years trying to kill Duke Leto. But Patrick Stewart in the Lynch Dune was a good character. But Patrick Stewart, he's a great actor, Even if we don't like what they've done to him with the new Star Trek, we think that they've completely dishonored the memory of a once great Starfleet captain. We still have to respect that Patrick Stewart himself was a great actor. I remember him in the movie Excalibur. I mean, he's been in a ton of movies and he's always good. But yeah. Yeah, I have some resentment towards Zendaya, guys. During the duel part, when Paul is dueling Fade, Zendaya actually kind of looks like she's hoping Fade will win. Oh, Thufir. Thufir, believe it or not, was not the military advisor. He kind of was, but he wasn't. He was the house assassin / Mentat. Thufir Hawat was renowned for his plans and schemes, and most of them involved assassination. The military guy was Gurney Halleck. He was the house military guy, and he was the one that trained Paul in combat and stuff like that. But yeah, Thufir Hawat was a Mentat assassin. And in the new movie, they give the Mentats the tattoo. That's so dumb. you could tell a mentat because their lips would be stained red. Like the whole area around the lips would be stained red because they drank the juice of Sappho. And the juice of Sappho stained the lips, which was supposed to be a warning that you're drinking too much of it and you need to calm down. But, you know, one thing about Dune and one thing about the role-playing game online that I play is they do not shy away from the idea of drug addiction and all that stuff. I mean, half the people it is by will alone that I set my mind in motion, is by the juice of Sappho that thoughts acquire speed. The lips acquire stain. The stains are a warning. It is by will alone. Something like that. I mean, that's just from memory, you know? And so, yeah. And the other thing is that freaking, what's his name? The Harkonnen Mentat was not a good thing at all. He was a bad thing. They actually referred to him in the some of the books as the Twisted Mentat because of how evil he actually was. And how evil was he? More evil than you want to consider. He was evil. Like, he's the kind of guy that would have enjoyed, you know, kicking puppies and shit like that. He was an absolutely horrible person. And of course, the Baron, who he was constantly plotting to kill. That's one thing about the guy. He was constantly in the middle of a plot to kill the Baron, but that was okay because the Baron was constantly setting up plots to kill him. And for his part in the plan of the downfall of House Atreides, the Baron had promised to give him the Lady Jessica. And then for some reason, he decided to kill her instead. I think because the Spacers Guild told him, you know, to kill them all. And of course, the Mentat went along with that. But yeah, that guy, like, had Jessica ended up in his possession, I sure would have hated it for her because he was the kind of guy that really enjoyed torture and stuff like that. So had Jessica ended up in his hands, he would have mistreated her in ways that we don't even want to consider. You know what I mean? Just, yeah. You don't even want to think about how horrible that would have been. So the fact that the Baron decided to dump her off into the desert to kill her was actually really a good thing for her. And the fact that the Mentat got killed by the poison. Those were both really good things for her. Yeah, the spider thing, I'm not sure what that was. If that was a gift from the Bene Tleilaxu or whatever. Yeah, Crafting Gamer, I believe that's probably true. Because you could just tell Sting and Patrick Stewart were both, they were down. You know what I mean? They were doing their thing. And also, the guy who played the Baron is a British actor that's been on a couple of British TV shows like Doc Martin and stuff like that. So, I mean, and look how he was just going off. You know what I mean? So, I would say Bear is right. Hire British actors and you will get some crazy shit. I would say, yeah, Bear's 100% correct in that. But like I said, I love to see actors in movies where you can tell they're having fun being in the movie. I mean, and Sting, every scene he's in, you can tell he is having a good time. You know what I mean? He's just like, check me out in the steam shower, whatever. Of course, the Baron, as twisted as he was, never would have looked at Sting in any sort of sexual way. Um, I mean that's his nephew, and the Baron's thing was drugging young boys and then taking them back to his chamber and having his way with them while they were drugged. Like I said, something they're never going to put in the movie because of reasons. But yeah, Baron Harkonnen was an extremely, extremely homosexual man. Yeah, that's the insinuation, is that they turned Dr. Yui's wife into that weird spider thing. And the Beni Talaxu could absolutely do something like that. Yeah, the Beni Talaxu could absolutely make that happen. But only the series actually touched on the fact that the Baron Harkonnen was extremely, extremely gay and absolutely despised the idea of sleeping with a woman. And the only way that they got the DNA for Jessica from the Baron is they had to trick him. They had to drug him. And then they had a Bene Gesserit sister that basically looked like a boy. Still his genetic seed. Let's put it. She basically took his baby batter uh, while he wasn't, all there. So I mean, by modern standards, you could say since he couldn't give consent, then the Bene Gesserit basically uh, pulled some grapage action on him, right? I mean, there's some of that. There's just some of that for sure. The other thing, though, is here's something a lot of people don't know. The Baron Harkonnen did have a skin condition, and the reason is because he had mistreated the Bene Gesserit, Gaius Mohiam, who become like one of the leaders of the Bene Gesserit. They had made a deal to have sex, but the first time they had sex didn't take. So the second time when they're going to make a deal, the Baron kind of cooked into it, some some crazy shit, right? And then um pretty much there's no nice way of saying it. He basically ass raped her and sent her on her way because he did keep to the deal, right? Um, but because the Bene Gesserit can completely control their own body at a genetic, molecular level, she used her body to give him a skin disease that would never heal. as revenge while he was doing his thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The sci-fi version was absolutely closest to the books. It followed the fact that, like I said, Fade was constantly, plotting to kill the Baron. In that particular part of the movie, what he had done is Fade had took a young boy that he knew the Baron would want and had implanted in the inner thigh of this young boy's leg a poison dart that when certain pressure was put on it, it would shoot out and inject poison into, whatever, right? So you can only imagine what sex acts the Baron would have been getting up to get, whacked by a poison dart like that. But yeah, the Baron basically cut a deal with Fade. It is a good scene too. Like Fade's looking at him, and the Baron's all like, "Don't worry, I've got like 12 snipers sighted in on you right now." Yeah, she gave him basically this weird ass space herpes because of what he did. Because he basically he like, the Baron was really good at negotiating things and doing double speak. So when she came back to try to talk to him, he pretty much said, "Okay, I agree. I will penetrate you and give you my seed." And Gaius Mohim agreed to it. Of course, this is when Gaius Mohim was very young. And according to the contract, the Baron absolutely did exactly what was agreed upon. He penetrated her and gave her his seed. The problem was, what he did is he roughly and brutally butt raped her and then sent her packing. And there was nothing she could do about it because she was in Gady Prime in his personal chambers with probably 12 assassins, sighting in on her with sniper rifles. So all she could do is take her sword behind on, and so eventually they got him through trickery. So yeah. Like they kind of hint that Gaius Mohim might be Jessica's mother. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was some no-name Bene Gesserit lady who looked like a little boy, and that's pretty much how that went. But like I said, they won't show that because they modern studios would never show that part of his character because they're terrified to ever depict, a gay person in a negative light. And it's really stupid because, I mean, all the gay people that I've ever known, and it's a lot because I used to, be a vampire LARPer. So you guys know what I'm saying. I don't think any of them would have cared if they had depicted the Baron Harkonnen as a brutal, you know, paterist who would sometimes drug and abuse young boys. Because, I mean, the whole point of the Baron was he was supposed to be evil. And there's not a lot more evil I can think of than, drugging basically children so that you can abuse them sexually, whether they're boys or girls. I mean, that's pretty much just some straight up evil stuff. Howdy, howdy, Nerdy Ogre. Been a minute. Been a coon's age since I seen you, bro. What you been doing? But yeah. That saying, I think Bear gets put on edge by when I say it's been a coon's age. And I'm always like, you say it all the time. It just means a long time. As it's there's no racial uh, inclination to that term. You know what I mean? You're talking about a raccoon, the age of a raccoon. You're not talking about anything else. Sometimes certain things are in fact innocent and uh you know, like he was getting a little whatever about Hungar and I talking about Indian people taking poops in the street. He's like, hey, and it's like it's not racist to say things that are absolutely provable. I mean, do I think that the Indian guy that joins the channel sometimes Agreem is pooping in the street? Probably not. But I do know that Carl Pilkington talked about when he visited India, literally watching a young boy walk out of nowhere into the middle of the road and squat down, take a poop. So, I mean, yeah, I don't see how that's racist, but I'm sure somebody can figure out a way for it to be. But I mean, a lot of times you just can't judge other cultures by stuff we do, even if you want to, you still got to be like, all right. I mean, you want to see something really crazy? Watch a video about Indian street food, and you'll notice that they literally put their hands in everything that they serve you. Like everything they serve you, they handle. They're putting their hands in and all that. But I think that like for a long time, they've stopped it now, but for a long time, anytime you saw a black actor in a movie, he had to always be like a brain surgeon or something like that. They could never just depict a black guy as a black guy, maybe even being evil or something, right? But thankfully, I guess enough time has gone by and people have stopped being racist and stuff. That now, you see black dudes like I mean, come on, that one dude in Breaking Bad. I mean, that dude, that dude was scary, man. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't want to mess with Gus. Excalibur, I like Excalibur better than King Arthur, but I'm going to tell you something, Mad Cat, and you can make fun of me if you want, and I'm okay with it. I really, really, really loved the musical Camelot, and I've probably watched it 50 times in my life. You know, I like a lot of the songs in it. Lancelot, when he's coming across and he's like, Simwa, Simwa. I mean, like, we need a knight who can do this, that, and the other. And he's talking all this shit. And he's like, and who should it be? And then he's like, Simwa, and all of that. Yeah. If you think about freaking, you really don't want to think about King Arthur too hard because the beginning of the movie is Merlin, who is supposedly in some stories, like in some way related to the devil. Never watched Camelot. It is one of the all-time great musicals of American cinema. Merlin, who is supposed to be related to the devil in some way or some shit, turns Arthur's father, shape changes him so that he can go and have non-consensual sex with the wife of another guy who's dead, and then she begets. I mean, that movie starts out rough. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, in Excalibur, like the stories, Mordred flees to the island to the west. That's Ireland. She fled to Ireland. And that's why when her son comes back in Excalibur and he's wearing that golden armor and he's carrying a spear and he's got that faceplate with the curly hair and it's a beautiful youth, he's dressed up like Lou Lambada, which is one of the Celtic deities. So the subtext there was Christianity versus paganism. And Mordred and his mother represented paganism. And Arthur, of course, represented Christianity. And that was, I have not seen the movie Merlin. I know there was a TV series called Merlin, and everyone I know who watched it said they really liked it. Also, there was a series called The Celts, and my pops watched it, and apparently he really liked that one too. He thought it was like just the best thing since sliced bread, but you know, it is what it is, right? It be what it be. And like America, I just be over here building shit. You know? That's what I do. I just be over here building shit. That's Habitual Line Crosser. It definitely a channel that if you've never watched, I reference it all the time. And I highly recommend it to anyone, especially veterans, but to anyone who just wants to watch funny stuff. Of course, it's from a veteran point of view. So, and he does all the different countries. Not a big fan of Russia, I'll tell you that. He's not a huge fan. He always refers to Russia as the tundra tard. And he always refers to England as beans on toast. And England is always the whiny guy bitching about whatever America's doing. And of course, America's always doing something shady. So it's funny. And then they have airplanes in it talking, and they're funny too. Like the stealth bomber that we used to bomb the shit out of Iran. He's always high. Slavic special ed, you have the tundra tards. And the way he does China is so funny because he does like the accent so well. And he's like, the great China will one day be the ultimate power in the United States. And then, of course, America's like, what? You know, with your wish version, whatever, and this and that. So then America makes fun of China for having shitty equipment and whatever. Actually, in his series, America just makes fun of everyone for having shitty equipment. Actually, the only one America ever seems to really be nice about is Poland. What's up, Bruce? Yeah, in his little series, America loves Poland, and Poland loves America. I mean, he calls Poland European Texas. And I love when Poland complains about buying missiles from the US. And like England's like, Poland, you just bought 200 and something whatever missiles from the US. Why? And Poland's like, they would not sell me anymore. And it's just like, okay, you know? It's like, and every time the US says they've invented some new weapon, Poland's like, is it for sale? And they're just like, I do love you, little European Texas. Yeah. It's just funny, Anyone who takes him serious has a severe problem. I mean, he cracks on everyone. There's even like this super old racist airplane in it, the B-52 bomber. That's super hard. Yeah, except unfortunately in the Iran thing, and yes, they showed pictures of F-22s escorting the death Doritos, but the Iranians didn't even know they were there. You know what I mean? It's like, so, and he's like, I'll take a pigeon, a bat, anything. I just want to get an intercept. And it's like, they didn't even see you. You were just like a pixel on their radar screen that was a little bit out of, it's like, so don't worry about it, kid. You'll get one soon. And the US is always looking at the F-22 being like, I feel like Frankenstein because I've created something and I'm terrified of it, And that's the F-22, which, to be fair, we'll sell anybody with the money F-35s all day long. Of course, we sell them downgraded F-35s, but we'll sell them F-35s. But don't even ask about buying an F-22 because the answer is no. You're not getting one. Whoever you are, it doesn't matter. You are not getting an F-22. Not ever, 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 ever. Well, yeah, Poland goes through cycles where they rise and they're very powerful. Then they get in a war and get wrecked because they thought they were more powerful than they were. And then they're occupied for a while. And then they stop being occupied. And then they start getting really powerful again. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen again, but there is a certain kind of a rhythm to Polish history. You know what I mean? Yeah, and unfortunately for the poor F-22, um, Israel shot down every fighter that Iran could throw up. So F-22 can be proud that he was part of a mission that was 100% successful and sent a message not just to Iran, but to the world. I mean, I think that's one reason when Trump went to NATO, everyone in NATO was super happy about him and being there and was like, the one guy called him dad and stuff like that. Because Trump doing what he did to Iran didn't just show that he could do what he did to Iran. It showed that he could do that to anyone, anywhere on the globe, and there's nothing anyone could do about it. Because believe it or not, unless the Israelis destroyed them all, Iran had some pretty good anti-air devices that they had been buying from Russia, the 300 series, etc. Maybe the Israelis whacked them all because Israelis, they do love to destroy anti-aircraft shit. I mean, they invented a whole technique, the wild weasel, which is specifically about doing nothing but running up on AA units and whacking them.
Testing,
That's the
testing. 1, 2, 3.
6-day war, and they used F4s. But yeah, you come in. Hey, what's up? You come in and you dip low, and then you go high so that the enemy radar can hit you and you hit it. Then you dip low again, but you fire a radar-seeking missile, and it follows the AA's radar right back, right home. Boom. And they called it the Wild Weasel. I think it was the 6-day war. Yeah. Oh, nice. That ogre looks really good.
Thanks. I haven't read anything about the F-22.
No, the F-22 is not getting retired from service. But they're not building as many because the F-35s are so much cheaper.
They're cheaper. We can actually farm them out
to other countries. I mean, we recently sold like 100 of them to Japan
and Poland.
And the ones we sold to Japan apparently were modified with vertical takeoff engines and shit.
Yeah.
Because Japan has a new carrier.
Mm-hmm.
They took an old destroyer, which you wouldn't think would be big enough to be in a carrier, but I'm thinking American here.
Yeah.
So they took a destroyer, completely refitted it and put a flat top on it. And then they stuck a shit ton of VTOL F-35s on that bitch. Now, one thing I would say, but Bruce will have to correct me, it seems like a destroyer made out of or a flat top made out of a destroyer would probably be pretty fast. But then again, I don't know. Those carriers move pretty fast too.
The carriers can move fast. It's just not nimble. It's not nimble, and the draft on the destroyer is a little bit more shallow.
Yeah. So but I mean, that was just China, or that was just Japan letting the great China know that if they keep effing around, because Japan has straight up told China, if you mess with Taiwan, I mean, we're in. So that's another, and I mean, that's another thing that China's got to think about, because we all know if there's one thing the Chinese don't ever want to do, it's go to war with Japan again. Yeah, what they did is they made a thing kind of like their helicopter carrier, except it's specifically designed for vertical takeoff and landing F-35s. So now they actually have a carrier that's loaded for bear with, Gen 5 or Gen 6 fighter craft. Whatever gen the freaking F-35 is.
Fifth gen.
Now the F-22, I don't know what gen it is, but I can tell you this. It's never been for sale to anyone. It's top secret. We keep that bitch locked up and only let it out like, for shit like we're going to go, bomb the shit out of Iran or something.
The fifth gen aircraft are hitting their peak. We're turning out a F-47, aren't we?
Yeah, the F-47 is basically, they're saying, going to be a twin engine upgraded F-35
with the capacity for aeronautical aggressiveness, like what the F-22 can display.
Right.
And the F-22,
the few times the F-22 have encountered Chinese aircrafts, it scared the shit out of them because it ran up on them and they didn't see it on radar. And it was like telling them for miles. And then it finally passed up and got close to them and looked out. Japanese aircrafts just banked back to China because they're like, they never saw it.
Wasn't there a situation with F-4s and the F-22 where the F-22 came from underneath, was totally silent, and scared the pilots, and the pilot from the 22 said, it might have been 35, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys may want to go home. You're not equipped for an actual fight. And I think that was Iranian F-4s.
Yeah, I actually, what I'm talking about, Mad Cat, is there was recently a U.S. Navy, whatever, when all their fleet gets together and goes on parade and stuff like that. And they invited Japan. And the Japanese Navy is now being built so that it can fully integrate into American systems. And they had their fast carrier with all their F-35s on it. A Gen X aircraft, the F-4 Phantom. No, that's even before us.
Yeah, that's like Vietnam era.
they had their freaking, and apparently Japan also has, I say apparently when I know for a fact they have, a destroyer with a functioning railgun. And we invited that to come take a few shots at Houthi targets just because. And apparently, even though it's really just shooting a big iron ball, it's moving so fast when it hits, the kinetic energy is like insane. You know, it's a railgun. So the Japanese, man, they went from the 70s when they're like, we're only defensive, we're not ever going to build weapons of aggression, blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden they're building carriers, freaking submarines and ships with freaking space weapons on them. But I think they passed a bill in their Congress not too long ago about them being able to, just, you know, if anybody's going to do it, it'll be Japan. I mean, I saw where in Japan they actually have a robot that goes up and down their train lines and repairs any damage. And it doesn't require any human interference at all. You know, it just does its thing. It follows the train rails, and if it finds anything out of place, it freaking replaces it, fixes it, whatever it is. Let me go grab something real quick.
Go ahead.
Clumsy.
Yeah, I actually, I'm kind of curious about how Japan's going to go into the future with this, because we've all seen the Veritex and Robotech stuff. What are you going to do, Japan? Are you going to raise the Yamato off the bed of the ocean and outfit it for space travel like in the cartoon? That'd be kind of cool.
Well, I know when they had their F-35 thing, and it was like a big deal because F-35s took off from the American carrier and landed on the Japanese carrier. And, of course, they had to have a big ceremony passing them on and all that. The Japanese ships were flying the Rising Sun banner. All right, take care, Mad Cat. But which was, you know, they still use for their naval guidon. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Ensign. So,
Nerdy says, makes me a little nervous. Look what happened last time I built offensive weapons, and that might be how a lot of people see it.
But this time they're on our side.
I don't get it. I don't understand. I think anybody that's building, you know, up a force is preparing for the future. But when I get upset or when I get worried, it's when Germany gets involved with stuff, because every time they've started doing things, the world
Germany starts arguing with Poland and France.
Oh God!
Then all of a sudden you gotta be like,
"What are you guys doing? Stop it! Stop it!"
Stop it. It's like you've already started 2 world wars. Calm the F down. But hey.
Look at me. I'm Captain Harlock now.
But this time around, we got nothing to worry about because the Japanese are our buddies. So they are absolutely designing all of their war vessels and everything to integrate with U.S. systems so that we can communicate back and forth and basically be badasses together. And that's a good thing. Captain Harlock now, right? Yeah, right. Look at me. I am Captain Harlock.
So, James, Reaper, started making troglodytes.
Oh, I love that.
So they sell these in packages of 3.
Well, that is nice. Is
Yeah.
what that is.
Got 12 of them. I've painted for years. I've never bought troglodytes. I've never had them.
Trogs are a monster that appear in a lot of AD&D adventures,
Mm-hmm.
but you just don't really see a lot of people use them for some reason. You know, it's like, it's weird. They're basically just lizard men that live deep underground.
They have a funky
Damn.
smell.
Yeah, and they're funky. But so I think that's a thing, but I don't know. I'll have to check out the Reaper web page, because last time I went on, I didn't see those, and I ended up 3D printing like a dozen trogs because I knew I needed them for an encounter, and they came out really good. But you know, we'll see how the Reaper ones look too. You know. Bring back Bushido. They populate the left coast. Yeah, but Japanese Americans, by and large, tend to lean more conservative. So I wish there were more Japanese in California than there are. And legal Mexican immigrants also tend to be very conservative, which is why when the Democrats are all surprised that all of the Chicanos are voting Trump, and it's like, you know, these guys go to like mass every Sunday, right? And they work their asses off. They pay taxes, and they're no bit more fans of illegals coming across than anyone else, because they had to do it the hard way. They're over here working and paying taxes, and then someone just shows up. Oh, referring to the Trogs. Good band too, though, from like the 60s, the Trogs. But anyway, yeah, and they were interviewing, like CNN was going around interviewing Mexicans, trying to get them to talk shit about Trump and the immigration, and it totally did not work, you know. All of these Mexicans are like, yeah, they're illegal. They need to go home, you know. What's funny is so many people have got it in their head and made this like, I don't know, white people versus Mexicans. But if you go on the ICE website right now and you look at the people they've deported, they have deported Asians, people from Central Africa. They've deported a shit ton of Russians that were here illegally. They've even deported Canadians. So, I mean, no, it's not about, oh, we're going to get rid of all the Latinos. I mean, they're getting rid of everybody. It just happens that there are more Latinos here than Russians, but it doesn't mean that Russians aren't getting deported, right? And you don't see me out on the street waving a freaking Federation of Russia flag, bitching about, you know, illegal Russians being sent home. And the whole, I'll tell you another thing too. The anchor baby thing has nothing to do with Hispanics.
Nope.
It is a very common thing for Russian women to wait till they're just about to pop a kid and fly into Miami. Pop the kid, get the kid's birth certificate and everything, and then they fly home. But they've got that chance to come to America because of the way it works with the whole, you know, you can bring your grandpappy and your grandma and your brother and have all that shit. But yeah, Russians, Eastern Europeans are the worst for the anchor baby thing.
Yep.
So,
Another one that's really bad is the ladies from Belarus.
Yeah. Well,
They do that
Eastern
a lot.
Europeans. Yeah, they come over, they pop a kid. They have a whole system set up, where they've got like hotels that are owned by their people so that the pregnant women know exactly where they're going to go while they wait to have their baby. And then they catch the first flight back to Belarus or wherever the hell. It's an industry, it's an industry that they've been doing. So, but yeah. So, of all the games I've asked the players to make characters for, the ones they seem most excited about, really, and that means we may actually play at some point, have been Gamma World and Star Frontiers. But I knew Star Frontiers because Hungar, who I don't know if he's still in chat or if he fell asleep or if he's playing Doom, has, for since we were teenagers, been a huge Star Frontiers fan. Ladies in Latvia outnumber the men 4-1. Makes sense, since the Latvians were one of the Axis nations in World War II that literally fought damn near to the end. And to this day, once a year, they go and lay wreaths and celebrate the Latvian SS unit, because those guys were hardcore. So, yeah. Lithuanians were not much, better. And like my nephew visited me from Michigan, and he was at the time engaged to, now married to, this girl from Latvia. And we were all sitting around and talking, and of course, she knew that my pops was Russian, and somehow she says, in Latvia, we actually like Germans way more than we do Russians. We don't really like Russians. And I said to her, well, that makes sense, since during World War II, you were on their side. And she gave me this look, because they're kind of liberal. It's like when Trump changed to the Gulf of America. My nephew posted, and he's like, hey, look, all of the least educated states border the Gulf of America. And I had to post back and be like, Robert, you live in Detroit. Shut up. You're not educated. I
don't remember Detroit leading the nation in anything but crime.
Right. And it's an example that I hate of people who may or may not have went to college and walked out of college, not just with a degree, but an attitude. Like they're better than everyone who didn't go to college. And yet, historically speaking, most of the great inventors of the United States history never had a lick of college, because, college these days is basically a place they send people to turn them into communists. Did you see that thing Benny did?
Benny
on Ocasio-Cortez,
talking about her high school photo.
Went back to where she actually grew up.
Yeah, she's from Westbrook or someplace, which is like
Yorktown.
Yeah,
which is like a super wealthy, super exclusive, mansions everywhere. Yeah, he was laughing about it. He's like, she keeps saying she's a Bronx girl, but she's from Yorktown, and it's like super rich there.
Far away from the Bronx.
And it's far away from the Bronx. Exactly. It's nowhere near the Bronx. So, because she's always making posts. Like she made a post about Trump with the whole a Queens boy can't handle a Bronx girl. Trump should post back and be like, yeah, but we're pretty good at handling people from Yorktown. You know, like just throw it in her face. But yeah, and in school and high school, she didn't go by Alicio, whatever. She actually went by Sandy. Like her school yearbook and everything has her listed as Sandy.
I'm not surprised.
And then at some point, she changed and became whatever, you know. But yeah, originally she was Sandy Cortez, and her dad owns a business with another guy. I think it's architecture. And they grew up in a very nice house and lived in a beautiful town with manicured parks, etc. So basically, everything about that woman is fake. But it's so common to have these people who grew up in very, very good environments, and then they all become commies. And it's kind of like a joke. I mean, it's like Hassan Piker. His dad's a billionaire. He's a multimillionaire. He lives in LA. He drives a $600,000 car, and yet he's always talking about wealth redistribution. It's like, well, go ahead. You know, knock yourself out. Redistribute some of that wealth, man.
$600,000 car. What does he have?
The $600,000 car. It's some kind of super special Porsche.
Why am I not impressed?
Oh, I don't know. But it's like Bernie, who's never had a job in his entire life. And, you know, he's talking about what he wants to do and this and that with all of the poor. But he owns 3 mansions and, you know, he has tons of money. I mean, literally tons of money. So it's like, come on, man. These freaking champagne socialists that just it's I mean, it'd be funny if, you know, it weren't so sad, I guess. And to get a little kind of, but not really political, I guess the Ethan Klein, he's suing all those people for stealing his shit, which they did. And so far, the girls he's suing have all opened up help me please fans things, you know, give me money so that I can fight off the evil Jewish guy. And because they're all super pro Palestine and whatever. And not a cent that we know of has been donated to any of their causes by Hassan. So again, it's like, you know, and all 3 of these people are Hassan Piker orbiters. So it's pretty hilarious. Pretty hilarious. These people are getting effed in the A. And they all deserve it.
So I put in your little private chat there. I don't know if you have this yet, but it's called The Lonely Coast. And it's like a multi-page, very good in-depth overview of a region by a coastline where there's a bunch of little villages, and it'd be perfect for like the start of a campaign. And it's really cool. It's very well written, and I think you might dig it. It's free.
Nice.
If you want the print version's like $10. But the Lonely Coast is amazing.
So for fantasy,
Yep.
that might be the perfect thing for me, because I was actually thinking about where I could set a Gamma World campaign where there would be access to every kind of whatever.
If you're running basic, if you're running first or second ed, if you're doing Pathfinder, it covers it all.
Yeah, but
I think for Star Frontiers, I think it'd be interesting.
well, it would be an alien world you could land on.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm thinking because Gamma World is really not that much different than D&D.
No.
I mean, honestly, you even got orc type creatures, orcers that you can fight with, even though, you've got batters and hoops and whatever, but they're all basically just different humanoids that you can fight with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of getting magic, you can get mutations and artifacts from the past. So any setting that would work for basic D&D with very little modification would work with Gamma World. Like, all you got to do is draw in areas on the map. And say that this area, there's a tribe of hoops instead of goblins. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So, yeah, it'd be very, very easy. My wife is in there listening to Eric Clapton for some reason.
Eric Clapton's okay. I like his Yardbird days myself.
Yeah, he is a guy that I was never like enthralled with most of his stuff, but he had some stuff that I absolutely thought was great. And the example would be like the station or whatever it's called, the White Room, whatever, So his old stuff, in a station with yeah. And of course, he did a lot of remakes of Robert Johnson that were pretty good. As a matter of fact, his early career was just him doing remakes of Robert Johnson, really. I mean, he loved the dude. He did tons of remakes. Like the Crossroad Blues. Yeah, that was a remake.
I respect Clapton, but I'm not a big super fan of his. If you said we're going to listen to some 70s rock and you started playing Clapton, I'd be okay with it. But if you really want to see me happy, break out some Sabbath or some Brownsville Station, and I'll be very happy.
See, for me, if I want to listen to 70s rock, it's going to be weird. That's all I would tell you.
Okay.
If you and I were hanging out and I was like, Bruce, I'm going to put some 70s rock on, hold on to your freaking yarmulke because shit's getting ready to get weird.
Are you getting ready to play some Hawkwind?
No, I'm getting ready to play some Velvet Underground, Tubeway Army. What's his name? He did Cars.
Oh, Newman.
Yeah, some Gary Newman, who was in the Tubeway Army, and then he did his own stuff too. Then, of course, amongst all of that weird shit, you're going to hear Zeppelin. You're going to hear a lot of Zeppelin. And then you're also going to hear Sabbath, old school Sabbath.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to Ronnie James Dio, I will listen to him when he's doing his solo shit, which was amazing. Like when he is in the one band and they did The Man on the Silver Mountain, Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Also, you probably won't hear Beatles, but you will hear Stones.
I hate the Beatles. I think they're overrated. I think they are a retreat for people that don't want to think. They just want to get along with everybody else and be seen as cool or mainstream. So they play the Beatles.
See, I don't hate the Beatles, and they do have a couple of songs that I respect.
Oh yeah, they did some things that were really cool, but I just don't like their music.
Right. But when it comes to like, I want to sit around and jam out, old Stones for sure. You know,
I'll take Stones every day.
Get Off of My Cloud, freaking. Shit. What's the name of it? Save Me or something like that. Da-da-da-da. And of course, I mean, it's too obvious, but Paint It Black. That's obvious, but it's also amazing. You know, of course, every time it's like Fortunate Son. It's like every time I hear Creedence Clearwater Revival come on and the song is Fortunate Son, I can't help but also hear like Huey's.
Okay, what was the movie that came out and that was the scene? You heard Fortunate Son and Huey's going over the horizon and the fucking the jungle flora. What was that?
The series was Tour of Duty.
Okay.
There was a series.
That was the iconic one?
About this group of guys in Vietnam doing the whole, hey, we're in Vietnam thing. And every episode started out with the guys like in Huey helicopters flying over the jungle. And it would bust into, you know, you'd hear the down, 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 and then boom, 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 and you know, Paint It Black. And it'd show these guys hanging off the side of the, you know, sitting in the Huey with their legs kind of hanging off and the rifles like slapping the magazines to their helmets and getting ready to jump out and do some shit. And it's a pretty good series. Some people, and I will agree, said that it totally jumped the shark about season 3. But the first couple seasons were really good
because it killed off regulars. It was very real.
Yeah, it was like, this is the real deal. People will die. And there was kind of supposed to be a tie-in, which was China Beach.
Are you sure it was China Beach?
China Beach was the tie-in where all the nurses were.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of the Time Daily that was on it.
To be a tie-in to Tour of Duty.
I have to look this up. I remember the advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah, China Beach was the name of the show. And who was the hottie on it?
See, I didn't care for China Beach because I didn't give a shit what the nurses were doing.
It was Dana Delaney. That's who it was. And she later went on to one of the best movies of all time, Tombstone.
Who was she in Tombstone?
She was the girl that fucking Kurt Russell married.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd much rather watch whatever was going on out in the jungle
Mm-hmm.
than a bunch of nurses being all romantic at each other or whatever. So, not a fan of China Beach. Huge fan of
Tour of Duty.
Tour of Duty, though.
Yeah.
I remember Tour of Duty blew my mind because, one, pretty much everyone I know that's of the age to go went to Vietnam. And like episode 1, dude steps on a landmine and dies. And I was just like my mind was blown because I just didn't expect it, is like that guy, I mean, 1 minute he was there, the next minute
Gone.
stepped on a mine and was blown up. And of course, the fact that the mine went off alerted the VC that were in the area, and they came. So a big firefight took place, and I'm just like, wow, I wonder if this is how it actually was, because, like the guy who sang Copperhead Roast said, he volunteered for the Army on his birthday because they draft the white trash around here first anyway. So, you know what I mean? So he was basically saying you might as well volunteer because they're going to draft you anyway.
Tour of Duty was a pretty impressive show. I remember watching the series finale when everybody went home.
Yeah.
And they were just kind of shocked at how America felt.
Well, I mean, it's what happens when you let a bunch of Cheeto brains be in charge of shit.
And let the fucking media get all communist on you.
Yeah.
Do you have Helldivers too, by the way?
I don't have any of the Helldivers anythings.
Okay.
Except for I got a pretty good sized army of Helldivers.
No, I'm talking about the video game.
Yeah. Yeah, I got an army of them that I use with one-page rules to fight with whatever, I mean, the thing about the one-page rules is that you basically pick kind of whatever your faction is, and then you play, and the actual miniatures you're using kind of don't matter. You know what I mean?
It has a miniatures agnostic feel to it. They take
Well,
care
it's designed that way. So if I want to play a game and I want to use all of my Helldiver stuff, I can choose like the Brotherhood or whatever, right? Which is supposed to be like generic Space Marines, but Helldivers work as generic Space Marines. If I want to use all of my Halo ODST guys, then I can use catch you later, bro. I can use is he a commie? That is too bad.
Steve Earle. I didn't know that.
Didn't know that. But it's funny. You grow up and you sing songs about your lack of respect for the government, but then you support an ideology that's all about submission to a government, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, that's communism right there. You exchange your individual thoughts and your worship of God and everything and replace it all with the state. So for a good old boy from Kentucky or wherever he's from to be a communist is like, that doesn't make any sense. That's the exact opposite of what we actually do up here, I mean, if the goal is to just be left alone, you're going about it wrong, because that is the one ideology that promises to never leave you alone. But
even Wikipedia can't hide his communism and his leftist views. Wow.
Like, how bad are we talking?
How bad are we talking?
Yeah.
So early 2000, Earl's album Jerusalem expressed his anti-war, anti-death penalty, and his other leftist views. The album's song John Walker's Blues captured American Taliban fighter Johnny Walker Lind. It created controversy. Earl responded by appearing on a variety of news and editorial programs and defending the song and his views on patriotism and terrorism. His subsequent tour featured the Jerusalem album and was released as a live album, Just an American Boy, in 2003. And then that's the same year that he was seen performing in front of the United States Supreme Court. There's a picture of him playing his guitar. And the next year, he released an album called The Revolution Starts Now, influenced by the Iraqi war and the policies of George W. Bush administration. It won a Grammy, of course, for Best Contemporary Folk Album. And the title song was used by General Motors in a TV advertisement. It was released during the U.S. presidential campaign when John F. Kerry was going against George Bush. No surprise.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them do that. It's a shame. I mean, look at what's his name? Pirates of the Caribbean. That idiot. He was born and raised not very far from where Leth is. And then you've got the idiot from Hunger Games, who was actually born and raised, actually, again, not far from where Leth is. So I don't know if there's something in the water down there where Leth lives that's just causing these people to be idiots.
I'm not trying to dox Leth. What state does he live in?
Kentucky.
I had a kind of a Twitter feud yesterday pop up because some dumbass made the statement that Carrie Fisher was a 3 all of her life. If you had a crush on Princess Leia as a boy, you're an idiot.
That's probably a young kid who's stupid.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt. Like you're obviously not grasping the times.
He might just be some edgelord trying to freaking go against the grain. Look at me. I'm not your typical nerd. But Carrie Fisher, if he thinks she was a 3, he's obviously never seen True Lies. Because if he ever seen True Lies, he'd be like, yeah, she's not a 3.
That's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Okay. Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia?
Yeah, she was Princess Leia. She was the funny girl in Blues Brothers. She was in Under the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah, Blues Brothers. She kept trying to kill him.
Yep.
Yeah, because what's his name? It ran away from their wedding.
Yep. One of the greatest reveals in movie history, I felt.
She was definitely a beautiful woman.
I thought so.
I mean, not Jamie Lee Curtis, though. Yeah, the old gods of Kentucky. You're right. I mean, these idiots. It's like, do you worship Cthulhu? What is your problem? I actually kind of felt bad for the girl that was in
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
No, I did up until she made a movie called Mother.
Is Mother the one where the one baby wants to stay with the ghost?
I'm not sure. Mother's the one. God, there's so much feminine energy in it. Of course, it would with the name Mother, right?
Right. Well, I can tell you, and this is disgusting. She featured heavily when the fappening happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess she was in California filming the movie, but sending all kinds of nudie pics to her boyfriend back in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Embarrassing.
I love those photos. I remember getting a hold of those and sharing those with all my oil friends.
Embarrassing. I
So
saw
anyway-
those photos, and all I thought is I'd kind of like a roast beef sandwich.
Yeah, I was.
That's pretty
Not
much
really
how I felt
impressed.
about it. I was like, this girl has been torn up.
There was a few other girls during the fappening that were coming out though that were not so beat the fuck up like Jennifer Lawrence.
Well, there was that one Olympic chick.
I can't remember her name.
Yep. And
But that
it's
was
like,
good.
it's like, here's the thing. If you're a young lady, do not put nudie pictures of yourself on the internet
Don't take nudie
because
pictures.
they will be found.
Don't put nudie pictures on your phone or on computer. Don't take them.
Yeah, don't take them unless you're willing for the whole world to see them, because that's just the world we live in.
And whenever you think the whole world, I'm telling you, look at me, a fat 50-year-old man with wrinkles, a gray beard, and think of me hunched over, furiously masturbating to photos of nude you. And that should take the idea that you need nude photos of yourself out on the internet.
Oh my
That should
God.
completely torpedo it.
It was a very explicit image there.
You're welcome. So this movie, Mother, it's got Ed Harris and Jennifer Lawrence in a married relationship.
Oh.
And yeah, that's the start of the problem. But the movie kind of goes over the top. And after the first half hour, they have uninvited guests come over. And the movie just slides from like a 9 to like a 4. It's not a good movie.
So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, the wife of the unexpected guests is the most heinous example of white married liberal that I've seen on television. Or how a white married liberal would want to portray herself if she could be conservative, but that completely fails. The script fails at that point, and you just have this mess.
Yeah, it's kind of like when fucking idiot made the movie Red State.
Oh God.
It's like, dude, really? You're from New Jersey. Shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you enjoy your taxes and your feeling of superiority over other people, but I mean, if you're from New Jersey, you don't get to talk shit. You just get to shut the hell up, because I mean, New Jersey is like a terrible state, you know, ran horribly, and it's basically a dumping ground for New York. Like, if you want to live in New York, but you're unsuccessful, you get an apartment in New Jersey. I mean, it's really sad, you know.
That's one of the many truths that's been uttered here today.
And it's like, yeah, you know, so. But for some reason, there's a lot of asshats out there that want to talk smack. It's like the thing with my nephew. some people in northern states have somehow gotten it into their mind that the fact they're from a northern state makes them more intelligent than the people from southern states, despite the fact that Florida is number one in education in the union.
Well, that's just all the Northerners moving down to Florida. You ever hear that
Well,
crap?
no,
I
that's
hear
the
that all the
school
time.
system, though. The school system in Florida is number one in the union. We went from 48 to number one under DeSantis. So go us, right? But so it's like, you know, and then of course the guys that are, oh, I went to college, so I know things. And it's like, yeah, I disagree. My niece, whom I love, is like dating this guy, and he's raised in Kentucky, but he moved to Indiana, got a degree in stupidity, because whatever his degree is, it's not an actual degree that anyone would give a shit about.
I know basket weaving.
Well, it's more like soil conservation or some shit. So their job is literally to go to farmers and like be like, hey, stop doing this and stop doing that. You know, whatever. You know, it's a busybody freaking career where you just go around and like, now, will they make a lot of money doing it? Probably. And that's awesome for them. But I mean, you know, my nephew, who's doing his own thing right now, he got his degree in engineering and then immediately joined the Navy as an officer and took nuke tech. So, you know, he had his shit together. You know what I mean? He knew exactly what he was going to do. And I respect that. But, and then my other niece, she has had a baby and she's married and she's, you know, her husband can take care of her. So she's kind of a stay-at-home mom, and good for her. Guy runs some laps around the ward.
Okay, so Six Nations is in the hospital right now,
Yeah, he said that.
and they've
They're
given him
making
a
him
walker.
walk.
They've given him a walker,
Yeah.
and he's trying to fight whatever is going on in his body.
Right.
And one of the ways he does that is by going out and getting active and just doing stuff. So he literally will go out and listen to us on either speakerphone or headphones. I'm not certain which. And he'll be huffing the whole time trying to push himself further. But he's...
More power to him, man. I want him to live.
Oh, me too.
Obviously. I
Dude's
mean,
an awesome guy.
I don't want anybody to, you know, before their time.
You know, I have my limits. You know, if you voted for Barack Obama, please step aside, get over here, firing wall.
Calm down. I
I
only
know.
voted for him one time. And it was the first time, not second time.
I'll forgive you because you weren't an Illinois resident. Illinois residents knew what the fuck they were getting into because
See,
the apparatus was here.
here's why you would forgive me. Because it wasn't, I always vote now. When I was younger, I didn't give a shit in most of my 20s, but now I vote. Like they say, old people vote, right?
Mhm.
I hate John McCain with a white hot passion.
Okay, I mean he only did a
I literally would have rather anybody but John McCain.
I would have voted for a paraplegic monkey in the Republican primary. If the paraplegic monkey had Tourette's, I would have voted for it over John McCain.
If they had took John McCain off the ticket and just made it Sarah Palin and anybody else, I would have voted Sarah Palin.
Sure.
But I'm not voting for John McCain. One, he's a dick. Two,
Yep.
He lied about his Vietnam bullshit.
Oh my God.
They took care of him great because he was the son of a fucking admiral. And
No,
three,
he caused
he
the
was-
forestall.
he is the worst Nepo baby ever. And he's also responsible for the death of sailors.
Yes. He
Because
caused the
he
forestall fire.
almost put he almost by himself sank an aircraft carrier.
Yep.
And then he says it was a malfunction. It's like missiles don't launch themselves out of malfunctions. That shit don't
No.
happen.
Secondly,
This
he
ain't
had a
North
bad
Korea,
habit.
you
He
know.
had a
We
bad
make
habit.
good shit here.
he would dump JP5 on the deck of the ship because it was cool looking to squirt a few gallons of JP5 out, then take off and cause this giant leaping flame to happen. But they called that a wet start. It added no horsepower to your initial launch. It just looked cool. And a lot of pilots did it back then. John
Dude,
Pike,
if you asked to the pilots that actually went to school with him,
they hated him, and he was a shitty fucking pilot.
they hated him and he never should have graduated.
He did more damage to the United States military air wing than the fucking Viet Cong did.
Yep.
He fucking totaled 3 fucking planes.
Yeah. Guy was constantly wrecking airplanes.
He put one in Nueces County, which is about 170 miles from me. He put one in the bay here, just east of Corpus Christi. And then he put another one down on the Forestall. And then the fucker got shot down over Vietnam.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're not.
He is the ultimate fucking Nepo baby.
Yeah, I didn't even vote in 08 because
His daddy took care of him.
Yep.
Made sure he got to be a pilot. Now, see, if I had a son and I had the opportunity to help him, I might help him, but I would make sure I never put him in a position where lives could matter.
yeah, if my son's a fuck up, hey man, I'm sorry. I got to keep this kid on the farm. I can't let him go out. If he continues to fuck up and like hurt the farm hands, ranch hands, I'm just gonna let the bull out one of these days. And
See,
Sorry.
I might have got him a job in the Navy, but I would have used my pool to get him into like a logistics thing or something. Something far away from where he could do any damage.
John McCain as a fucking supply officer, there's still so much that could go wrong there because he would find fucking he was the type of fuck up that he would have been huffing fucking aerosol cans.
Well, here's the other issue too: is he was such a freaking war hawk. If he had got made president, we would have been going to war.
Yeah.
With somebody. And
Yeah,
it wouldn't really even matter who.
It wouldn't.
The reality is we'd be going to war because John McCain was a freaking war hawk, and he was a war hawk until the day he died. He was still pushing for us to invade Iran or interfere with something. I mean, that dude would have got us nuked.
Yeah,
for sure. And I'll tell you, man, I'm just not down with it. So I voted for Barry. Barry could give a good speech. You got to give it to him. He could give a good speech.
Yeah.
And even though it turns out he was crazy homosexual communist, when he was doing his speeches and shit, he almost seemed like a rational leftist, you know, like someone that I could deal with. Of course, I'll tell you what, if you go back and you look at all of Barack Obama's policies, he'd be a Republican now.
Yeah, you can't do that many bombings of foreign nations and not be a Republican.
Oh, well, not only that, but he deported 5 million people. They used to jokingly call him the deporter in chief.
I remember this.
That dude was deporting everybody. I mean, he would see. That's what's funny is because Trump, his whole life was a Democrat, and everyone loved him until he ran as a Republican, and then they hated him. But like the other day, that blonde lady that talks for him, what's her name?
The 26-year-old or the older
The
one?
young one that gets in front of the media and yells
Secretary.
at them sometimes.
Yeah, Secretary of the White House. Bondi.
She-
Pam Bondi.
She showed all of the videos of like Clinton, Obama, like all these Democrat presidents calling, Biden, like all these Democrat presidents calling to deport illegals and to cut the government. And it was like, these guys all sound exactly like Donald Trump.
Yep.
So what happened? What happened, Democrats? You used to want to get rid of all the illegals that were sucking up, Social Security. You used to want to, cut government and save money. What the fuck happened? I think someone else said this. Might have been Bear. And I think he's 100% right. If you were to argue that that Donald Trump loved oxygen, I think Democrats would hold their breath.
I think we should test
Just because they hate him so much.
We should test that theory. Like, Donald Trump thinks you should breathe harder.
I mean, it does seem that way. It's like, you guys hate this dude, but you don't know why you hate this dude. And that's be like, look, guys, that's a little weird, It's like me. You asked me why I hate John McCain. I can give you 9 reasons, even if I was pissed drunk, These guys, man, I deal with a guy that's like used to be really bad like that. He might still be, but now he knows to keep his mouth shut at least. And it's like, none of them can ever tell you why they actually hate Trump. Because I stopped being aggressive about it, and he would talk shit about Trump. And one day I just said, why do you not like Trump? What is it exactly about him that you think is horrible? And he couldn't answer that question. And then his best thing is, well, he doesn't act presidential. I'm like, what's that got to do with anything? I mean, since when do you get to judge who's being presidential and who isn't? It's like, that's weird, right? But I know his deal is basically his wife is super liberal.
Just like
So he's just basically doing and saying whatever he's got to do and say to make sure he can get that punani. And in case you guys don't know, because you're young, what punani is, that is an old school word for the poussoir.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of brothers use it for some reason.
So do Italians.
But I learned it in the Army. I learned a lot of stuff in the Army. Because, you know how it is. You were in the Navy. And when you're in the military, man, it ain't like you're just hanging out with a bunch of people like you. You're hanging out with people from all over the place that been into all kinds of different shit. And you're going to hear words that you never even thought existed. But it's going to happen, So, yeah, I learned all kinds of things. But there was only one guy I was in the Army with who didn't like me, who was a black guy, I mean. Like all the white guys liked me. There was one black guy who hated my guts. And he was a sergeant when I was in E4. He had a P3 profile and had been in Korea during the war, so he never got any of anything. And like when I was in my dress uniform, right, I had a chest full of freaking salad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he hated me. And I remember one day I was sitting in the motor pool. We'd done our checkout on the Bradley. And I guess I was dazing off a little bit. And I was in a weird mood anyway. And I had no respect for this guy because how's he in an infantry unit and on a P3 profile? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Get the fuck out of here. You know, you can't do the job. You can't do shit, but you're my sergeant. And maybe that's why he hated me, because of that attitude. But yeah, he asked, he's like, McKee, what are you thinking about? And I was like, I'm thinking about shooting a hole in that fat gut of yours and sucking the blood out of it. And that dude turned white as a sheet. And then later, one of my bros is like laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, you know, that dude went out that night and bought a pistol. And I was like, he was so afraid I was going to show up at his house that he went out and bought a firearm for his own protection. And I'm like, that is hilarious, because obviously I was never going to show up at his house. But the fact that he was so worried about it made it funny to me, you know? And after that, that dude never said anything to me. Like, I'd roll in with my freaking full bird private badge, do whatever. He wouldn't say a word. If there was anything that needed to be said to me, he would go to the staff sergeant. And then the staff sergeant would call me in and talk to me about whatever. And it was never anything bad. And my staff Sergeant Moore, another black dude, he liked me. Like, that dude would, like, if I asked him for a 3-day pass, it was like guaranteed. You know what I mean? He was just like that, you know? I could be like, hey, I want a 3-day pass. He'd be like, all right. And he always gave me like the best reviews, you know? And of course, why wouldn't he? I mean, at the time, I was 180, pushing like 290 or above PT test, close to 300, you know?
300
And I was kicking ass. And I was like, I had awards from other units that I had volunteered to go to the field with. And then they had given me like RCOMs and AAMs and shit like this. So I was the guy in his platoon that was making his whole damn platoon look high speed, right? So, I mean, not to brag, even though I am bragging, but so basically Sergeant Moore would do and give me anything I wanted, you know? He was cool like that. I could ask him for anything and he'd be like, of course, man, you know? Because, you know, I mean, I don't know how the Navy works, but in the Army, if you make your commander look like a badass, the guy in charge of you, you're
Scratch your back really hard.
Shit, well, then that freaking glaze rolls downhill, you know? Like, if you're the guy that's constantly, you know, out PTing everybody and freaking, you know, whatever. I mean, the officers, when they call him in, they glaze him about how good I am. And then when he's let loose out to do his thing, he's all like, this McKee, man, he's freaking making us all look like a bunch of badasses. So therefore, whatever he wants, you know, as long as he keeps being a badass, we're going to keep giving him whatever he asks for, right? And yeah,
Way to get it all.
I assume the Navy is the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Navy, Army, Marines, it's all about the same thing, really. The fire department's that way, too. If you're like a high-speed dude in the fire department and, like, you're volunteering for every different kind of thing and you're just kicking ass and you're staying fit and, you know, you look like you could be on a calendar, etc., your battalion chief is going to let you get away with freaking murder, basically. You know, like, somebody might actually some of the other firefighters might actually talk shit because they're jealous or whatever. But the bat chief and the chief, they're going to be like, whatever, man. Because all they know is every time they turn around, you're making them look good. And they love that. You know what I mean? Because that's going to help them if they ever want to get a raise or a promotion. They need to look good. They need to look like they know what they're doing, right?
Correct.
So, yep. So, I mean, I had it kind of easy when I was in the military because of, but I mean, I can't say I had it easy like just because. I had it easy because I worked my ass off. You know, I had it easy because when we weren't in the field, in addition to PT, I was hitting the gym all the damn time or running, right? So, yeah, I put in work, man. I put in work. So, a lot of times when we did our battalion run, first brigade run with Colonel Jensen, I would get picked to carry the guide arm for the 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment. And let me tell you, that thing is heavy because 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry is one of the most, if not the most, decorated unit in the Army. So I don't know how the Navy does it, but in the Army, you got your blue flag, right? And it's got the crossed rifles, and it says 3-7 and whatever on it. And sometimes it's got some Latin or whatever written on it. And then every battle you took place in, there's a streamer hanging from the top of the thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Shark. Well,
Shark. Hey,
3rd
buddy.
Infantry has been in battles since the Revolutionary War. They were in battles in Civil War, but I don't think we had guidons for those because they fought for the South. But anyway, I mean, this thing must have had 50 pounds of silk ribbons hanging off the top of it with every battle they'd ever been in. So I'm telling you, if you doubt me, you can look it up. 3-7, one of the most decorated units in the military. And so you had to pick a big guy that could run, but was also physically strong to carry that guide arm because that thing weighed like 50 pounds just because of all the decoration on it. Like we also, next to our blue rope, we got to wear a presidential citation because at some point our unit did something that was so awesome that the President of the United States recognized our unit. And it was just pure luck that I got sent to that unit. I could have been sent to any unit. You know what I mean? But that's the one I ended up in. And I'll tell you what, grateful for it. I'm grateful that I was in such a high-speed unit when I was young and learning to be a soldier and shit. I really am. Uh-oh.
I was upset.
Doing something. I can hear the dog
Bear and I
freaking.
are about to do a cul-de-sac walk because the storming is about to start. Would you like me to make you some mini pizzas?
You don't have to make me anything, baby. We got that leftover pork in there. And I love that stuff. I'll eat that pork.
Well, I just wanted to offer, baby.
I appreciate it, my beautiful wife. Have fun walking before the storm. He peed earlier.
I know, but God only knows how long it's going to rain, baby.
It is Florida. We do get rain. When they say the sunshine state, they mean liquid sunshine. Because we're in that part of the year that we call the rainy season down here, where basically it rains every single day around the same time for about an hour and a half, 2
Usually
hours.
about 4 p.m.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you just kind of, you just deal with it. You know what I mean? There's not much else you can do. So, yeah. But we're lucky. My house, or I should say our house, we live in a cul-de-sac. There's only one way in and one way out. And so where we are, she can start from our front yard and go all the way around the cul-de-sac and then cross the street and be right back at the house.
Nice.
And the pup loves it. Let's see what Shark's saying. It can be weird. I always sucked at running. Yeah. However, when on 10-mile or 25-mile matches, full weapons and gear, I was always at the front of the company humping. Yeah. That's not. That's understandable. I mean, some dudes are better at that ruck march,
Yeah.
That's just how they are, My best time at the run, I was 22 years old and I did a flat 13-minute 2-mile run. And yeah, everybody was like, damn, that's pretty good. If you figure that out, that means I was running 6.5-minute miles. That's pretty freaking good.
At a march, that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, no, the run PT test. See, the Army PT test is you had to do X amount of push-ups, set-ups, and then a 2-mile run. And push-ups are the easiest thing. They were for me, but that was because I was working out all the time. So I could bang out 100 push-ups in 2 minutes, no problem, right? And then you do your setups, and that's where I always failed, setups. That's why I always had a hard time getting that perfect 300. Setups always killed me. I don't know why. And then you get your run, and I ran, 13 minutes for my age group was basically maximum points.
Yeah.
For that run. But we had this little guy in our unit we called Alphabet because his name was so long. I think it was like Abercrombie. Like his name tag, the letters were tiny in it, And I think he ran like a 12-something 2 miles. And like low something. It wasn't like 1250. It was like 1212 or some shit. It was crazy.
That's respectable. That's very respectable.
Well, he was what we called a pocket Hercules. Have you ever heard that term?
First time today.
Pocket Hercules is a guy that's like 5 foot tall, but Hercules.
Super strong, super quick.
Super strong, super quick,
you're a
run
nerd.
for miles. Never, throw a freaking 60-pound ruck on that bitch. He'll go for 2 days. And that was Abercrombie. He was a little guy, Alphabet. Tiny little guy. But PT and shit like that, he killed it every time. He just smoked it. And yeah, there was nothing he couldn't do. Awesome. He actually maxed out his PT score a couple times. So, but they changed the PT tests for us now. You don't do a 2-mile run. You do like 50-yard sprints. And I think they got rid of setups and went to like pull-ups or something. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, they tried to change our PT test to Off-Grid Gamer. Run what? Yeah. They tried to change our PT test to better reflect what we had to do. And running 2 miles is not something we would ever have to do. But sprinting 50 yards from one bit of cover to another, that's absolutely in our job profile. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And pull-ups are basically the best exercise you can do because it works your arms, your core, everything. So that's one thing the Marines have on the Army is the Marines do pull-ups and we used to do push-ups. And pull-ups are better for you.
I like pull-ups. I prefer push-ups myself.
Well, I mean, like I said,
There's more
push-ups are easy.
push-ups are easy, but they're also a good way to get an idea of somebody's staying power. Because if you have them do 30 push-ups and I'll get the rest later, they're really not near physically fit. They're writing something wrong on that paper.
Yeah. In the Army, when you're doing your PT test, you're doing your push-ups, right?
Yep.
If your knees touched the ground, you were done.
You're done.
And if you didn't have at least 42, you failed. You would get a retake of your, people talk about getting out of the Army. There was a really easy way to do it. Just consistently fail your PT test. If you fail a few of those, you will be out of the Army.
Yep.
Don't worry about that.
Usually after the third one, they start processing you out.
Yeah, you'll be. Sometimes they might give you the option to go to a training unit, which is basically you're going to basic training again. But usually they're just sending your ass home because you have been declared useless. And honestly, I'll show a little sympathy here. There are some guys who join the Army and for whatever reason, something happens and there's some part of the PT test that they just can't do. You know, maybe the run, maybe they did something and now they can't do pull-ups, right? Whatever it is. But yeah, they don't get kept around. And yet, if you can prove that the reason you got hurt is because of something in the military and you play your cards right, you're big enough shammer, you can get that P3 profile. And the P3 profile says that you don't got to do whatever the thing is that they say hurt you. So, yeah, you don't have to. If you say you've got P3 profile because your knees hurt real bad, then you won't have to do anything like running or anything like that. So you show up at calisthenics in the morning and you do the basic calisthenics. And then when everybody lines up for the run, because we do a run every day, you kind of drift off and go eat breakfast or some shit, I guess. I don't know. And then everybody in your unit makes fun of you behind your back and you're considered a POS. And, you know, the other P3 profile I've seen a lot of was black guys with P3 profiles saying they didn't have to shave. Did you ever see any of that?
The speed bumps. Hell yeah, I saw a lot of that.
Yeah, they get a special medical saying they didn't have to shave. So, you know. I will tell you this. If you're a white dude, do not use Magic Shave.
Nope.
Because that shit will take the skin right off of your face.
I got written up once and had to go see the captain. Because I had fucking olive oil based shaving cream It was just olive oil. That's all it was. And I kept that in my bag. And then fucking officer saw that in my bag and fucking put me on report. So I go discuss it with the captain. I'm like, it's better for me than fucking any foam. I can't do the foams. So this here, it goes on smooth. It takes the hair right off. It gets the skin ready for it all. He's like, well, I don't like the fact you discovered this, but I'm going to have the doc look into it. About maybe 2 weeks later, I was mopping. I'd done something else for extra duty. So captain stopped by and he sipped his coffee while I worked. He told me that he's like, you know, we've been asking questions and we're doing some studies, but you might have noticed the weapons department guy, whenever he shaves, if you ever see him shaving, he's using olive oil now. He's got skin like you. I'm like, okay. I love it. I love using olive oil to prepare my face for shaving.
Dude, there was a guy I was in the fire department with, and not only did he shave with olive oil, but he had a jar of it and he kept his razor in it. And he said that keeping your razor in a jar of olive oil will make it where your razor never gets dull. Because, I mean, the reason a razor gets dull isn't just because it's cutting your hair. It's because it rusts. You know, when it's sitting in your counter, the edge of the razor is oxidizing and, you know, basically it's rusting and getting dull. If you keep it in olive oil, that can't happen. But the reality is this: olive oil is basically good for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got these guys online now telling you should be like drinking it. Like, you know, a shot of olive oil a day.
Only if you want green poop.
Well, I don't care because I don't, you know, but yeah, what they're saying is it's like super good for your heart. It's can make you lose weight. It helps. Pretty much olive oil helps with everything. Whatever ails you, it helps with. You can shave with it. You can use it as lotion on your face. I mean, literally, it is one of those things that's kind of a fix-all, you know?
Well, the ancient Romans used baby oil or olive oil, and they would use it to clean themselves. They would lather up. They would throw a thick layer of olive oil on each other, and then they would scrape it off, and that would take the dirt off with a stick.
Yeah. Well, because olive oil is good for your skin. And then after they did what you're saying, they would go into a steam room. A lot of Russians to this day still do that. They will go, like, say you've got a dacha out in the country, a dacha, and you have a steam room, right? They will, you'll smear yourself up in olive oil, and then they take like birch leaves that are in a cluster, like birch branches, and you hit yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is while the temperature is really hot. And you hit yourself with the birch leaves. And then when you're done, you scrape everything off, right? And then once you're good and scraped off, you leave that room and you go into a cold room. And, you know, the cold room's supposed to, you know, that's your finisher. You're finishing. You go, it's cold as hell. And like the theory is, of course, that the hot room opens up your pores so that, you know, you can get them clean. And then the cold room closes your pores up. And plus it just makes you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, that's like a prehistoric tradition, but it's still done in most of East Europe. In Greece, they do it in Greece too. Like when you see those movies with the mob and it's a bunch of fat dudes sitting around
Mm-hmm.
in a freaking sauna
Yep.
talking about something or other, you know? Yeah. They're that's kind of what they're doing, you know. But really, and I figured this out because I did a lot of research and reading. Western Europe is based on Rome. Eastern Europe is based on Greece. And that's really the difference culturally. Now, there are some areas that are border regions, but that is pretty much culturally what happened. When the church broke in half, the Roman Catholic Church basically purged all the Orthodox out of Western Europe. And the Orthodox Church pretty much did the same thing to all of the Latin church members. They purged them out of the East. And so Rome became the center of Europe. And Constantinople become the center of the East. And yeah, I have nothing else to add. That's just basically how it went.
Yeah, that's how it went, though. But I mean, now you've got it in my head. Istanbul was Constantinople. Istanbul was.
Yeah.
Thanks. We got there might be giants in my head.
That's nobody's business but the Turks. And that's why we hate those fucking Turks. But anyway.
Really appreciate you being here today, James. I've been meaning to finish some figures and got done with that ogre, and now I'm getting ready to finish this ogre. It's chieftain or whatever the fuck this guy is. It looks kind of cool.
Well, I mean, cool. It's nice when somebody hangs out and they actually want to.
Oh, didn't get a chance to do it much with you last week. I'm sorry, man. Between searching and then finally finding Six Nations and seeing he's alive, and then other stuff going on,
You got to pay the bills, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I got to pay my bills, bill my bookie, and bill my probation officer. They get mad if I don't pay them. And of course, some of you know what that's from, but if you don't know what that's from, I'll tell you. It's from Calvin and Hobbes. There's an episode where Calvin is pretending to be a type private eye. You know, he
I don't know if it's my internet or your internet.
Oh, reconnected.
That you?
You know. You know, I don't know. So I've used that quote quite a few times.
Heard that a couple times myself. Chat, I'm still here with you. Don't know what's going on with him, but I've got green bars. Oh, there he is. Welcome back. Or as Raul Julia would be like, welcome back.
Have to cut the Turks some slack, grace, and love. One of my best friends is Turkish and Catholic and served as a U.S. Marine and a police officer. Well, I mean, this is something Max said a very long time ago, and he was right. Bruce is a racist.
Yes.
No, Max didn't say that.
But we can accept that. I'm willing
Who
to
was
accept
it that did say that? Because I remember somebody said that.
that. Some kid started with an N.
Well, what Nuxnor?
No.
But anyway, what he said is people, when they listen to me talk, need to remember that I don't got all day to be like not every single one. So just assume if I say fuck the Turks, I don't mean every single one. Obviously, there's probably some decent Turks out there that I would be friends with. However, as a group who conquered Constantinople and put it into the Eastern Roman Empire, fuck them, Yeah. Luckily, I have in my religion saints who tell us that one day they will be completely annihilated and Constantinople will fall back into the hands of the church. So all we got to do is wait. And then that'll happen. So here we are waiting. That would be St. Paisios. He says a third of them will convert to Christianity, a third will die in the war, and the last third will be sent into diaspora into the East. So they'll go back to where they come from. Central Asia somewhere. But the ones that convert, they're A-okay. They're good. They got nothing to worry about. So, yeah. And then Constantinople will be freed.
Istanbul is Constantinople. Istanbul is Constantinople.
Istanbul is Constantinople. Did you know that?
Yes.
There was a neighborhood in Constantinople that was called Istanbul, even dating back to the time of Basil the Great, the Bulgar slayer. It was a neighborhood.
I don't like that name, the Bulgar Slayer.
Well, he got that name by slaying a bunch of Bulgars. Because there came a time in history where the Bulgars, who normally hung out near the Volga River in Russia, decided it would be an awesome idea to go ahead and just invade the South. So they just showed up and set up shop, and they're like, hey, guys, this is going to be our area now. And they defeated the Eastern Empire. So for a long time, they did get to set up shop, but then Basil Prosphorus II become emperor of Eastern Rome, and he immediately reworked his army, and then went out and slaughtered the Bulgars so hard that from then on they were forced to be a subject state of the empire. And that meant that as a subjected state, it meant that they had to send men to fight in the army and stuff. Because that's something that's very common amongst the Romans. It's like, I conquered you, therefore now you have to send X amount of your young men to
go fight for us,
to join our army. And that's 100% what happened with the Bulgars, who, if you want to know what they were kind of like, just think Pinachegs or Huns. The Bulgars were mostly horse fighters. Kind of a Conan guy in my outlook. I'm too impatient for God most days. I can always apologize later for seeing my enemies driven before me. Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, according to the church, it would not be considered a sin to destroy the Turks. That's not the issue, because you have to remember the Orthodox Church does not frown as much on warfare as Protestant churches do. Because too many Protestant churches get hung up on the passivity part, and they forget the ass kicking part, right? And that's why in America, Orthodoxy is one of the fastest growing religions. And of that, most of the people who are joining the Orthodox faith are, in fact,
Young men.
young men. Yeah. Young men are incredibly attracted to Orthodoxy because Orthodoxy is a very masculine religion. You know, Orthodoxy tells a young man, hey, get up off of your ass and do something. You're the man. You're in charge of shit. So stop being a bitch. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Take
sir.
responsibility for your family. Maybe work out, do some shit. And a lot of young men who are out there feeling like no one in the world gives a shit about them, they see some priest that's a retired weightlifter or a retired, UFC fighter, but now he's an Orthodox priest, and they're all like, yeah, I want some of that. You know what I mean? And that's what they do. And then the 40% of women are generally women who are married to an Orthodox man who convert just because either they do find the religion and they're like, I love this, or they're just trying to keep the house united, because sometimes having multiple religions in a house, and I can tell you this from experience, can be very difficult. It can be very difficult. But see, my wife, she's seriously thinking about becoming Orthodox because she used to be Methodist. But apparently, very recently, the Methodist Church decided to go full on
Libtard.
left.
Yeah.
Like allow female priests and openly gay priests and all this kind of shit. And my wife is not generally by nature the kind of person who's going to try to quote scripture at you or anything, but she does know what it says in the Bible. And she does know that the shit they're saying is not in line with things Jesus said. So she's like, yeah, no. Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Slav is a big word, Shark. And what I mean by that is Slav can mean people who live in Serbia, people who live in northern Russia, the white people who live in the Altai Mountains, not the Asians because they're Asians, but it can mean the Poles. It can mean people who live in Czechoslovakia who are called Russia, and they're kind of a minority group, but they are Slavs, or Slovakia, who every Slovakian is basically Slav. Croatians are Slav, Slovenians are Slav, Pretty much everyone in the Balkans is Slav except for Romanians and Albanians. So, you know, even the Bulgars are now considered Slav because, well, they were a Slavic tribe that migrated from northern Russia down the Volga because they wanted to live in a place that wasn't a frozen hell most of the year, right? So when you say Slav, it's like saying Indo-European. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because Indo-European can mean so many different things. I mean, it's like Slav. Russians are Slavs, most of them, the ones that aren't Asian. And there are a shit ton of Asians in Russia. Poles are Slavs, but they're not culturally similar at all.
Nope.
And their language is not. It's like if you speak Russian, you cannot understand a Pole. Because the Polish language, the original Proto-Slavic language, was mixed with the language of the Scythian horse lords at some point in like the 7th century. And that's why you have all kinds of weird freaking sounds in their language. And the Kurgans as well. That's why in Poland to this day, they have tombs that are the tombs of the Kurgans. So, you know. So if you ever wanted to be all like, I've got something to say, it's better to burn out than to fade away. Yeah, apparently they lived in that region up there between Poland and Ukraine. And on top of that, you have to remember that a lot of the early Russian empires were actually Norwegians.
Mobius.
The Great White Slavs, Western Slavs, Southern Slavs, yeah. And like I said, like a lot of supposed Slavs from the European part of Russia probably have a shit ton of Scandinavian blood in them. Like how I have I have more than a dash of Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish blood. Because happy Halloween, ladies. Well, your friend is awesome because Polish is crazy and does not abide by any of the normal rules. And they have letters that regular Slavic, as a matter of fact, Polish doesn't even use Cyrillic alphabet. They use the Arabic alphabet. And they have letters that don't even exist in Russian. It's pretty nuts, actually. And also you see Polish letters with like V's on top and shit like this. If you see a Polish letter and there's a C with a V on top, it's pronounced sh. So, you know. Oh, happy Halloween, ladies. Yeah, when he's in the church. Yeah, I just needed a hint, Mobius. Because I'm like, happy Halloween. I mean, I don't know. But then, yeah, now that you mentioned the Kurgan, it's like one of his best roles. I kid you not.
I'm watching, apparently,
he was so good in that.
Somewhere in Maryland on I-70, they're trying to fix traffic, but this guy was carrying a blade of a windmill, and the ass end of the windmill decided to wander across the divided highway into the oncoming lanes.
Huh. That doesn't seem good.
No.
But yeah, what's his name? I always forget that guy's name. And I feel bad because he's such a great actor, and he's in 2, maybe even 3 of the movies that I love to watch when I just want to watch something fun. And yet I never remember his name.
Have you ever seen the movie called Don't Suck?
No.
It's about comedians, and there's a comedian that's a vampire, played by Matt Rife.
I don't know who Matt Rife is.
He's a young 20-something kid that's on the comedy circuit right now, and he's got a hell of a jawline. I'm going to give him that. He's got a very nice jawline, very, very masculine man, and all the women that go to see him they want to go out with him. He's a
Right.
very handsome dude, but he's the current sweetheart of the media right now because he's saying stuff that are kind of edgelordish, but he hasn't said anything really bad. The worst thing he did was he starred in this movie Don't Suck, where he plays a vampire that's a stand-up comedian.
I mean, that's kind of hilarious just in and of itself.
The movie is written by stand-up comics, not script writers.
Now, I'm thinking of the guy that played the Kurgan,
Clancy
Sergeant
Brown.
Jim,
Clancy Brown.
and he was also the main bad guy in Cast a Deadly Spell,
Yep.
which is one of those B movies that everyone should watch. Whoever you are, if you have access to Tubi or Roku or whatever the hell you need to get access to, you should watch Cast a Deadly Spell.
I'll check
I
that
will
out.
warn you, it is B movie to the extreme, but it is absolutely awesome. And the twist ending is pretty amazing too. And the main character is a old school detective named Philip Marlowe. Or no, Philip Lovecraft. And I love his landlord, the Jamaican lady. It's been however long since you've paid the rent. Need I remind you, I have a number of very strong brothers who love nothing more than throwing other people's possessions from windows. And he's like, I'll get the rent. And while you're out, hand these out. Because she runs a dance studio. And like twice during the movie, he goes to hand somebody his card, but he hands them her card. And they're all like, nah, I don't think I want to learn ballroom dancing. And he's like, oh, no. And then he's got to get his actual card out. It's just funny.
Sounds good.
It is. And it's Lovecraftian because he gets hired by an ultra rich man to find the Necronomicon, which he used to have and he needs for something. I don't want to spoil it for you, but someone stole it and he needs it back. And you got till Tuesday. And so Philip has to go on a whole quest to get this freaking book back. However, Clancy Brown's character, who owns a nightclub and was a cook, but no, wasn't a cook, was a cop, but he was a crooked cop. So he ended up not being a cop and becoming like, a rich nightclub owner. He's interested in it. I mean, so you have all these different groups that are trying to locate the Necronomicon to do whatever foul business they intend to do with it. Destroy the world, conquer the world, bring the old gods back, whatever.
We're going to summon a Dahol here.
And then in the middle of it, you've got Howard Lovecraft. And the thing that sets Howard Lovecraft apart from everyone else on the planet is he's the only one that don't use magic. Because magic came back and people started using it, but not him. And that makes him like really unique. And the whole reason the first rich guy hired him was because he didn't use magic. And he even has him take his shirt off and shit to make sure he don't wear talismans or anything. And, I don't know why, but yeah. There's one scene where this old dude's bitching because he's working on his truck. He's like, when we went to World War I, all we brought back was herpes. These assholes go to the Pacific and they brought back gremlins. And he opens the hood of the truck he's working on, and it is literally packed full of gremlins. So he gets his double barrel shotgun because it is his intent, apparently, to do some gremlin killing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And yeah. There's a trans character in it, except no one gave a shit and no one had to bring it to anyone's special attention. It's just part of the movie. A bag of dope on your table. Well, Shark, I will tell you this. There's one big reason why you will never, ever have a matriarchy on Earth. And it has nothing to do with men being better than women or anything else. It has to do with the fact that, and of course, I'm going to be religious here. God created man to lead and woman to help, not the other way around. And that is why the church, and when I say the church, I mean my church, gets so uppity about churches that have female priests and shit like that. Because that is 100% absolutely and in all ways anti-scriptural. And, the Orthodox Church is very, very strict and they don't bend on certain things. So, yeah. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? Now, people can say it's not fair and they can say whatever they want to say. And there's even some dudes that are trying to argue that men have done nothing but screw everything up. So maybe we should give the ladies a turn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get into all that because I'm not looking to get involved in a gender war. But I will tell you that there is a reason. And I've been saying this for years and years now. When these women are running up and down the street screaming, destroy the patriarchy, they're talking about God. And what's funny about it, what's so clever about it is they don't know that they're talking about God, but they are. Because the great patriarch of all reality is God. He is the Father, right? He is the patriarch of creation. So these misguided ladies that think, they need to destroy the patriarchy, I think a lot of them don't even understand what they're doing. They just don't get it because, they haven't thought too deeply into the subject, whereas I have. And I can tell you point blank that feminism is a satanic doctrine and has always been. And there's no way to go around that. Any woman, if she tells you she's religious and also a feminist, she's lying. You cannot be an actual Christian and also be a feminist. You can't do it. And that's not me saying we should take away their vote and control them or anything. Not at all. But, feminism stopped being about equality a long time ago. Like when you went from the Summers chick, who used to be like a big feminist, and then all of a sudden it turned into a bunch of purple-haired chicks with bull rings. Yeah. Feminism, because I don't remember her first name, but her last name was Summers, and she was one of the first wave feminists that worked so hard to to change things so that, you know, your boss wasn't allowed to sexually abuse you and shit like that. And she was super cool. Like, I would watch her and be like, yeah, I agree with this. Right? Women should not be treated this way. That's just not cool, right? But at some point, you had second wave feminists, which started getting kind of weird, with their leaders saying the whole point of feminism ultimately was lesbianism. That was the end goal. And then now you've got third wave feminism, where you got these idiots on the street talking about men ain't shit, men are trash, we don't need them, blah, 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 right? And so every wave of feminism has become worse.
Yeah, that's all.
And the thing is, though, the people who suffer the most from the feminist movement are the women.
Yep.
Because convincing a bunch of young women that they should be sexually promiscuous, the only people who benefit from that are men. Right? Because you can show up at the bar and throw down a little game, and next thing you know, you're dick deep in some feminist chick who thinks being promiscuous is, you know, empowering. But in reality, no, it's just destroying her. And every time she does it, she just makes herself less likely to ever be able to properly have a relationship with somebody. I mean, so if you were an evil super genius, I mean, feminism would be an amazing plan. Actually, you know, because you're turning one half of the species, the half that's supposed to be raising the children and nurturing and whatever, against God. So if you're the devil, man, feminism, awesome. Andrew Wilson's wife wrote a book about feminism and its connection to the occult, communism, and Satanism. It's a good book.
Sounds good.
And if you don't know who Andrew Wilson is, he's the guy that's always debating people.
He goes on the Whatever podcast a lot. He's the mid-30s, early 40s guy.
Yep. And he's hardcore Orthodox. His wife is hardcore Orthodox. And he does go on the Whatever podcast and make fun of. Honestly,
We need more people to do that.
it's cheap targets, though, for him.
Yeah.
Because those girls on the Whatever podcast, they are not bringing their best.
James?
Yep.
Really appreciate time you spent with me on this. It's
Okay.
getting close to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I need to start thinking about getting some sleep.
Well, okay, that's awesome, because the only reason I've stayed on this long was because of you.
Appreciate that. Tell your wife and family we said hello. Your brother included with that.
Yep.
I
Maybe
know.
I'll get to talk to them later if they figure out how the voice part of my Discord works. And then they can, when we're playing Dune, we can all get on voice chat together. That would be cool.
That would be cool. I'm not wearing a brother's shirt today. Today I'm wearing an American as fuck shirt today. Double Dragon Energy back when Kanye West was a relatively sane member of the media
Yeah.
just a couple of years ago.
You know, I still got love for Kanye. He's misguided. He's saying some wild ass shit, but I still got love for him. And the last song he did, I listened and like really tore apart the lyrics, and I totally get where he's coming from.
Okay.
Like, not the, you know, the hell to the Austrian painter bit, but the actual lyrics.
Yes.
When he's talking about they took half my money and they took my kids and they won't let me see my kids. And like, he's basically saying what it is, you know? It's like, yeah. As a man that went through a lot of shit in divorces and stuff like that, I'm like, I feel you, man. And then he says in the song, you guys say I'm at this thing, and you say I'm the bad guy, well, I'll be the bad guy, and I'll be this thing. And then that's when he busts out with the, the chorus, and it's like, it's like, yeah, I get where he's coming from. He's been effed over so hard by the system that he doesn't care anymore. He's willing to go online and say this outrageous shit because he's pissed. He wants to see his kids, but they won't let him see his kids. It's like, why? Why won't they let that man see his kids? I mean, yeah, I know he said some off the wall shit, but who hasn't? And what does that got to do with him seeing his kids? Nothing. But, and then they took all of his money. He lost $3 billion in one day. And they took all of his sponsors and, I mean, the man lost everything because of the shit he said. And in the song, he even says, I can't say anything on X without people taking it out of, out of bounds like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when you hear that song, you are hearing the despair and hopelessness of a man who has almost lost everything. And first and foremost, really, really just wants to be able to hang out with his children. But there are people who are doing their best to make sure he never does. And that is, in this man's opinion, effed up. And like I said, because I've been through a horrible divorce, I feel for the guy. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with necessarily what he said, but, especially, my Jewish relatives would not be happy if I was over here saying, yeah, I agree with Kanye, but I don't think he's actually a Yahtzee at all, Bruce.
You don't?
I don't think so. I think he said some shit because he was mad. You know how you say stupid shit when you get mad, especially if you're trying to piss people off? And I think that, I mean, let's be honest. The dude, he's a black dude. I mean, that right there should be a big clue for people. Like, you can say he don't like Jewish people if you want, and that might be true. I don't know. But you can't say he's a Yahtzee because, can you imagine him rolling into Berlin to shake hands with frickin' the Fuhrer? Yeah, that wouldn't work out. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So anyway, you get some sleep, and let me see what Shark said before I go. In ancient Rome, the Roman father, absolute power and authority. Yeah. Well, that was the whole thing. You married a woman, your wife, her duty was to give you children, and those children belong to you.
Yep.
And that's also why infidelity laws were so crazy, because, if you look at from an economic point of view, the last thing you want to do as a man is spend your resources on some other man's baby.
Nope,
right?
not at all. No.
I mean, you just don't want to do that. You want to spend your life, resources, etc., raising your progeny. So, in Russia, if a woman was unfaithful, they would strip her naked, beat her, and throw her out in the snow to die. The Vikings did something very similar to that, which makes sense since the Russians and the Vikings are so close. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. And then at some point in history, the woman actually become in charge. And that's where you get a bunch of guys getting effed over by the judges. But, I mean, you can't blame anyone but men because we're the ones that made it that way.
We did it.
You know, we're always the ones that make it that way. Because somebody's like, I don't know what you say. I'm not saying they're simps, but somehow or another, you know, it's
Smells like a simp, walks like a simp. It's probably a simp.
yeah, but it's like, okay, women wanted the right to vote. We could have told them to pound sand, but we didn't.
No.
We gave them the right to vote, and they immediately turned around during World War I and made alcohol illegal. Which, you know, not something we like, but hey. But of course, back then, you know, men were drinking so much, it was like unbelievable, you know.
Then we
Freaking
turned into diabetics because we all had ice cream shops and fountain drinks to replace the social normative of alcohol was replaced by that.
Yeah, my wife and I was watching this thing, and they're talking about like your average American in a day would drink like a 12-pack of beer and a liter of whiskey, like every day. And it was just because that was the norm. And they did that at work, at home, just all the time. It was part of being American, was just being drunk as shit all the time.
Now they call that Wisconsin.
You're right. And apparently it was so bad that women were like, hey, you know, my husband's spending all of his money at the pub, and, you know, we got kids. Somebody needs to help us out here. And of course we did, because we're like, hey, you guys need to quit being fuckheads over there, you know? And so now you know.
James, take care of yourself, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. And your lovely chat as well. One of the nicest chats on YouTube.
Moonshine will never die. Yeah, now it's legal, Mobius. Well, like I said, Bruce, get some sleep, man. You got a hard job.
Thank you. Night, everybody.
Good night. You are 100% correct, Mobius. Not only would it never die, that they had to they just had to make it legal. Because somebody realized it was better for the country to legalize moonshine and tax it than it was to keep spending all that money trying to hunt down these guys out in the middle of the woods doing their thing. Because the reality was they were A, never going to catch those guys out in the woods doing their thing, B, get killed trying. So it was just like, and plus, I've told you this before, the reason a lot of counties in the South were dry counties was because the sheriff wanted it to be a dry county. Because in a dry county, you can what's it called? You can charge bootleggers fees for protection and for ignoring them. You can tell a bootlegger, hey, I'm going to ignore everything you do, and in return, you're going to split your income with me. And I've heard stories of it getting so bad near where I lived that bootleggers would turn each other in to the sheriff just to take them out of the game. You know what I mean? Now, to me, that seems like some shady shit. But it also reminds me that there is no honor amongst thieves. So, you know, you shouldn't expect it. And that's kind of a thing. You know, if another bootlegger was doing way better than you and you needed to get rid of him, man, just wait till you know he's making a run and let the sheriff know. Shady as hell, but it's what people did. And my county was a dry county. All the counties near us were dry counties. So there was a couple ways that people bootlegged. One of them was you make your own whiskey and then you sell your whiskey, right? The easier way, which a lot of people did, and I can say unproudly, myself included, the easier way was to drive to Tennessee, because in Tennessee, liquor was legal. So you just drive to Tennessee and go to the, like right when you cross the line into Tennessee, there was a liquor store that actually had a drive-through. And you go in there and you buy as much shit as you want to buy, but you got to hide it. Because if you get pulled over in Kentucky, there's a limit to how much alcohol a person can have. So a lot of people would like put little, like modify their trucks so that you could put like cases of beer and stuff like that on the inside of the wheel wells. And so you go down and you grab a load of, beer, whiskey, whatever from Tennessee. And then you drive back to where I lived, and you let people know you've got what you got, and you charge them about 3 times what you paid for it. And that was one way people did bootlegging. And yeah, can't even find a payphone anymore. But that's okay. You got your cell phone if you really need to drop a dime. But yeah, that was a thing, though, that people did. They would turn their competition in so that they could, and the sheriffs would be okay with it. Because, I mean, especially if you weren't paying them. Now, if somebody tried to turn you in, but you were like paying the sheriff a lot of money, cutting him in on a lot of your cells and shit, he might look the other way on that. You know what I mean? Because why would he want to stop somebody that's making him like a ton of money? That just doesn't make any sense, does it? So yeah, he's probably not gonna, make a move on that. But if you're like not in good standing with the county sheriff and you haven't been keeping up on your payments, then 100% they'll be waiting for you. And if they catch you, you'll be going to penitentiary for a while. I remember my grandpa telling me they were trying to catch him one time, and he turned down a side road. He was on Highway 27. Lights hit up. He pulled down a side road called Blue John, which it's like a mountain road, so it's super windy. And there's like always a drop on one side of the road, and the mountain goes up on the other. And it's supposed to be a 2-lane road, but really, if two cars want to pass, you have to be really careful, or else you're going to run into each other, right? Scrape into each other. And they tried to chase him down that road, so he literally turned his lights off and was hauling ass down that road with his lights off. And after that, they gave up. They're like, yeah, they let him go because, I mean, they couldn't catch him anyway. He had an old Buick. That thing was a sleeper, you know what I mean? Freaking On the outside, it just looked like a normal family sedan, but on the inside, it was basically a racing car. And yeah, they that's how he got away. He freaking hitting those turns in the middle of the night with no lights on and shit. I mean, you know. CNC game. Yeah, I'm ending this. I was just getting caught up in a story, but peace and love to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will